Alright. Well, it's very nearly 2 p.m. We're going to start just a tiny bit early because there's already loads of questions coming in. Deadly to have you here. It is just about 2 p.m. on Sunday. It is a bit miserable. It is a bit grey. We are forecasting a hurricane to hit us by next Wednesday. Maybe, possibly, it is another comedy, headliney thing. But anyway, we are here, and it's lovely to have you aboard on this kind of grey, kind of weird Sunday. Hopefully you can all hear me and see me. I can see me, so I don't know if you can see me or hear me, but I can hear me and see me. So that's pretty good. But I'm actually live. You're slightly delayed. But we're catching on. Yes, the audio all seems to be running properly. So it is Sunday again. It has come around. Tomorrow I am off to Munich to test a new BMW X1, amongst other things. I think there's an X7, X5, X something else there as well. A few other cars. Bit of a refresh thing going on for BMW in Munich, so that's on tomorrow. And then I'll do something else another week. I'm on the radio on Thursday on Midlands 103, if you want to join in on that as well. And a quick word as well. I see a few Irish people in particular starting and emailing me and asking me about YouTube channels and starting up YouTube channels and stuff and getting cars off dealerships. If you're going to lend out cars, make sure you know who you're lending them out to. I've seen a video recently of a fella taking a car from a main dealership and fairly ragging it now, not being nice and kind to it, and then bringing it back to the dealership again. If a customer sees the license plates on that car and to see that on the video, they're going to be asking a lot of questions. So just be prepared. It's cool. You want to get all influencers or whatever it is, or people you think is just going to be nice little chaps out there and do stuff like that. That's great, but you got to think of the safety aspect of it as well. You're lending 50, 40, 50, 60,000 euros worth of a car to somebody. If they're going to drive the crap out of it, you're going to have to sell it. And if anything happens to it in between and they're not covered by insurance, well, it'll be a bit of an explaining to do. So just bear in mind that I have no objection whatsoever to people reviewing cars. Where I started was at used cars as well. The same thing. I started the same way. But, just be aware that merely handing it out to someone can end up being much more of a hassle than you expect it to be. Anyway, today we are talking about new cars. Brexit, car sales are falling. Irish car of the year again, of course, has come back up because it still has to be decided upon. We're going to have Irish car of the year this year is on the 7th of November, which will crown next year's, actually 2020's car of the year is what we're looking at. And I'm going to just flick through the list of cars because no one, you guys are the ones who are going to get the behind the scenes of this, because absolutely no one has seen this this spreadsheet that I hold here in my phone. This one here, it is actually a spreadsheet. It's on Google Sheets. We're working through it as to what is the available cars for Irish car dealers. Just going to fly through it. Eric Watcher points out that I have a puncture on my press car, and I do. Got up this morning, looked out through the window, the rear left-hand side of my Mercedes C-Class 200 Estate, which is a fantastic car, last year's model. It's a 2018 model, but it has a puncture out of nowhere. And I open the boot, and lo and behold, there's no spare, there's no compression, pressure kit, there's no gunk in the bottle, there's nothing in the boot. And so it's banjaxed. It'll have to stay there now for the night, and that's the end of that. Another word as well, while I'm still on the subject. I uploaded a brand new video today. It is of the Skoda Scala. I'm quite rough with it. I think it might deserve it. I fairly kick it hard. But anyway, that has gone out already on my Patreon. So if you're one of the lovely Patreon subscribers out there who is supporting the channel for this length of time, you are already watching that video. So that has already gone out, but it will not be out on it. It will, of course, be always, as always, we do free stuff here, but it will go out here on this channel on Tuesday morning at 10:15. I don't think Skoda's going to be terribly happy with me after that. But it's nothing I can do about it. It's just not good enough. Anyway, Irish car of the year. Just flick through a few of these, right? So we have Audi Q8, A1, e-tron, Q3, A7, RS6. There's no Alfa Romeo in this year. No Fiat in, as far as I know. BMW. I don't think the RS6 is going to be here in time for the Irish car of the year. But anyway, maybe not. BMW have the 3 Series. Now that is expected to rank very well this year because it's a very, very good car. X7, Z4, the 8 Series, both convertible and coupe. The X5, and I think that's about it for BMW. It was actually quite a run, but you notice the lack of an electric car in there? Weird, isn't it? Citroen have the C5 Aircross. I still have to drive that properly. Cupra, which is now the distinct brand from Seat, will be the Ateca, the Cupra Ateca, which is a phenomenal piece of kit. Weird, but phenomenal. Nothing in from Dacia. DS, which is separate from Citroen, now has a DS7. Drove it the other day. Average enough car. Looks fantastic, but average enough to drive. Nothing from Fiat. Ford Ranger Raptor, one of my favourite cars of the year. Very late getting a spin in that car, but anyway, I was on the international trip in Morocco with it. Ford Focus ST, I'm also late getting a spin in that, so we'll see if that comes right. Nothing in from Honda this year. Hyundai have the Kona EV and possibly the i10. Nothing from Jaguar, we judged it last year. Nothing from Jeep. Kia have the e-Niro, e-Soul, Proceed and Exceed. I actually think that e-Niro and e-Soul might pilfer on their own votes, weirdly. You know, because you're voting for an electric car and there's 2 electric cars from the one company. You can end up kind of half and half, you know. Nah, nothing from Land Rover because the Defender won't be here till next year. Lexus have the GS, ES and UX. Really bad names there, Lexus. You got to sort that out. Mazda have the Mazda 3. Mercedes have the GLE. This is now you got to write these ones down, right? Because it's a very long list here. Mercedes launched a lot of cars since last November. The GLE, the CLA, the GLC, the B-Class, EQC, A-Class Saloon and AMG 35. Now, get that one. That's some list of stuff. Mitsubishi have nothing, Nissan have nothing, Mini have nothing. The electric car won't be in, I don't think, 2020. Opel have a Combo Life, but there is a few other cars that they might have in as well. Peugeot had the 508, that's a good car, it's going to do well. Rifter as well. Range Rover Evoque is in. Renault have a Clio and possibly a Kadjar, but I'm not sure if it's new. Seat have Tarraco. Skoda have the Scala. Subaru have nothing. Suzuki have nothing. Tesla have their Model 3. Been asking about that, see if we can get it in. We have to test it before it goes into the Irish Car of the Year. But Toyota have the Corolla, RAV4, Camry and Supra. Volkswagen have the T-Cross, possibly Grand California. Volvo have the S60 and Porsche don't have anything in this year because the Taycan won't be here until next year. So there is your list of cars for Irish Car of the Year that you can mull over for a bit. I might put that up on the Facebook page or on the Patreon page so you can download it and look at it for yourself and see what we do to vote on these cars, because it's very, very hard to get all the votings done. Brilliant to have loads of you joining right now. This is deadly. It's deadly, really going up. But that is how Irish Car of the Year is judged over 2 days in Mondello. We actually judge all year long. We drive the cars throughout the year. Then we do a refresh day for 2 days in Mondello. Then we kind of sequester ourselves in an office somewhere and try and figure out how to allot votes to it. And then the Irish Car of the Year comes up on the 7th of November. I stand up on the stage and start awarding prizes in front of hundreds. And I have to give a big talk this year, a big speech. It's a very proud moment, actually, to be honest with you, because I came from 9 years ago being people laughing and thinking it was funny to start a YouTube channel about cars, and it was never going to happen, to be the chairman of the entire group that gives out Irish Car of the Year, which is kind of, it's a cool thing, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, let's go through who's here. Raymond Grace straight away has asked, good afternoon, Bob. Have you any comments on car speeding? Very few car drivers obey the speed limit, even in urban areas. When I drive locally, there are several cars behind me and no cars in front of me. Raymond, there is a couple of schools of thought on speeding, right? So if you look at the Autobahn generally in Germany, the Autobahn is one of the safest places to drive, and you can drive as fast as you want in certain areas of that. Now, it's not the whole length of the motorway. You get these kind of 3 stripes on the side of the road, and then all bets are off. You can go as fast as you want, and then the speed limit comes on. On the same token, Germans, when they go from down to 100 kilometers an hour, they all do 100 kilometers an hour. They all actually do the speed limit. They're very obedient in that respect. So French people's speed limit is 130 on the motorway and 110 in inclement weather. So when it's raining or foggy or anything like that, the speed limit drops, and it drops on purpose. So there's a couple of schools of thought when it comes to speeding. Generally, if all the traffic is moving in the same direction at around the same speed, you're at the safest point of the road. So on a motorway, you are safer than anywhere else on earth. No matter what actual speed you're going, you're safer there than anywhere. On B roads, on back roads where you've got twists and turns and hills and hollows and humps, that's where speeds come into a bit of a problem, because usually the posted speed limit is not a target, it's a limit. And so some drivers will drive at 50 in 100 and other drivers will drive at 110 in 100. It's the speed differential that causes the problem. Realistically, You must drive as the road dictates. I would be a very confident driver, and I would have no problem whatsoever in. Usually, if I wanted to, I could break the speed limit pretty safely, and everybody in the car would feel safe. That's down to training, and I've driven with a lot of other drivers that are like that. Dave Humphries would be one, Michael Sheridan would be another one, Tony Toner would be another one. They're very confident. They've done a lot of training, they know exactly what they're doing, so you'd feel safe. Other people speed and you don't feel safe, and the minute you get in the car to start acting it, and that's the end of it, and they just end up in trouble then. And so speeding for me, the relentless war on speeding doesn't help from the RSA. It's actually attention. If you pay more attention on the road, you can drive fast and safe at the same time. Speed is just a result of that. The really dangerous point is stopping. It's how hard you hit the wall. It's how fast you're going. That's what does the real damage behind it. Currently, the Go Safe vans are on strike and there's no deaths on the road. So do we need Go Safe vans at all? I wonder. Anyway, it's just me. Robert Van Sant. Hi, Bob. I have a couple of questions. I just wondered how much does it cost to charge an EV in an Irish home, and Tesla give two figures on the price. Can you expand, please? It says after savings. Okay, so ESB rates, so electric rates at home. In Ireland, we have what's called a standing charge. So whoever you get electricity from, that standing charge remains the same. And the standing charge always goes to ESB Networks, which is owned by the government. The standing charge is slightly variable, but generally speaking, it's always the same. Now, when you get a night meter, that standing charge changes. It goes up ever so slightly. So that standing charge is like a static amount of money that has to be paid out straight away. Now, the actual rate, so the rate of how much you pay for electricity is that's a phone call just in the middle of me answering this question from the guy who's going to fix the tyre in the car, so I can't answer it at the moment, but it'll be okay. So when you charge a car at home, you pay a rate, a per unit rate. That's the rate you worry about when you're actually charging a car, because the standing charge is the same anyway. It really makes no difference where the standing charge goes. But the rate, the instantaneous rate, is the most important part. When I've charged most cars, it's between maybe €4 to €9, depending on how empty the car is. Tesla took the most amount of electricity while it was here. It cost about $11.50 to charge a Tesla from about 25-ish, 26% full to full. And that was a day I came back from Waterford after driving all the way there and all the way back in one shot, and plugged it in at home and left it there charging overnight. That cost about €11.50, €12, somewhere in that region. Now, charging on the street currently in Ireland costs nothing. So when you walk up to a charge point, you just press your little button thing on it or your little card on it, it opens, and that's totally free. That will change. We still don't know how much that's going to be. I'd say it's going to be a flat fee. But it's saving money. So if you take that Tesla to be full, say if you came with zero and a Tesla costs 15 quid to fill, that's 450 kilometers for 15 quid. That's vastly cheaper than petrol, but not vastly cheaper than diesel. My C-Class outside with a flat tyre currently, when I got in, is able to do 1,100 kilometers on a full tank of diesel. So a full tank of diesel costs about 50 or 60 euro, somewhere between the two of those, depending on the rate you're paying. So 50, 60 euro for 1,000. So 30 euro for 1,000 kilometers, give or take. Say 40 euro to be fair, 40 to 50 euro for 1,000 kilometers in a Tesla. But then that car is 50 grand and the Tesla's 100 grand. Gets anywhere, doesn't it? Right, anyway. Where are we? Eric Rogers in the house, command. Raymond Grace here as well. Mo AV, tips for breaking in a new car engine. Why is it important? It's not as important anymore as it used to be. So breaking in an engine when you buy a brand new car and it's only got a couple of kilometers on it, what you're looking to do is make sure that the pistons and the seals all get a chance to warm up and wear against one another and kind of settle in. It's a settling in of the engine. It used to be vitally important because the tolerances were gigantic in a car. So when a piston was going up and down, it would nearly rattle in the cylinder, right? That was a problem all to itself. But these days, the tolerance is very tight. So it's very unusual for anything really to happen during the first time. But then you don't want to let the revs go over maybe 4,000 RPM for the first 1,000 kilometers. That's kind of good basis to run on. If you think of it that way, That should sort the car out for at least 1,000 kilometers. Just give it a chance to all kind of bed in, and the creaks and noises and stuff to get used to one another, and you should be fine. But after that, in older cars, definitely in the dark ages of the 80s, you could take a car and drive it for 500 miles, and the whole car would fall asunder during that 500 miles. So it's very easy where older cars fall apart. But these days, modern cars are kind of run in before you get near them, so it's not quite as much of a big deal. But I still wouldn't go over the 4,000 RPM till you've well driven in that car, till you have a good few kilometres on it and it all settles down. Eric Rochford, hope you got that puncture sorted, Bob. It's a real pain when there's no spare in so many cars these days. Well, I didn't get it fixed. It's sitting out front still, punctured. But I do have a message here from the PR company that deals with Mercedes. Hi Bob, I'm told those tyres are run flats. Best option is only to drive the car to MDL and more. Run flats should be fine for you to do that. If it's very flat, you shouldn't go over 80 kilometers an hour. Is that okay? But sure, the run flats is stay inflated. It's flat as a pancake. That's not good. Okay. Anyway, I'll figure it out. Don't fear. Wow, so many questions already. That's amazing. It's brilliant to have you all here. Thank you very much. But if you are a Patreon subscriber, you've already seen or can go and see at any point the Skoda Scala video I put out this morning. If you've seen it, hit a little thumbs up on it. Thanks. That'll go live on the channel on Tuesday. If you want to support the channel, you can support it through Patreon. Any Patreon subscriber will get the video a couple of days early. You can also support it by PayPal, which is a little link down below. Click on that and submit a little bit of money there. Hit the subscribe button or do a super chat here as well, along with your questions. Always good. What do you think of the Ford PowerShift gearbox? Ford PowerShift is actually really good. Nice, honest thing to drive. Now, I know they ran into some problems out in Australia, and I believe that came from the very dry climate. That the PowerShift was giving up on certain gears, so it would skip third or fourth or something in the middle of it. I never suffered that here. I found PowerShift to be equal, at least, to anything that DSG did from Volkswagen, and certainly able to handle high torque situations, as they use a PowerShift box along with a truck gearbox on top of that for the Mustang, and also for the Ford Ranger Raptor. They use that same gearbox, and it's a 10-speed gearbox, but it's based on a PowerShift one, so it seems okay. Never had a problem with it. My wife is currently making noise over there in the corner and making faces at me, trying to put me off. Not the way it is. It's very hard to put me off. Oh, by the way, while I'm there, you can also get tickets to the Ideal Home Show. So the Ideal Home Show, I am giving a talk at this year for about 40 minutes or so on electric vehicles and electric future vehicles. Completely independent from the show. No one's paying to be there, but there will be cars there. So we're going to have a Model 3, we're going to have a Mitsubishi's, we're going to have, I think Volkswagen are bringing something as well. And there's a few others. There's a load of cars going to come there on a day. And I will be there from the morning to answer your questions, and then have to do a talk for 30 or 40 minutes or whatever it is. Someone's going to tell me, I'm sure, at some point how long to talk for. But it's all about electric cars. So it's at the Ideal Home Show this year, and I have discounted tickets, which I must actually put up on the screen. I'll put them in a link somewhere on my social media. I definitely put them into the Sunday Service community on Facebook if you want to go and join that. And you can get discounted tickets there, and actually free tickets for one of the days as well. So I've given out free tickets, but you got to get them now, so apply now for the free tickets. Powell is here. Powell, did you I can't pronounce your last name, sorry Powell. Eric Rochford, what? Powell, is it? Alright, Powell. Here and see you fine, good man. Christopher Wayne, Niall Burke, greetings from Sunny Tip. That's Tipperary for anyone who's not from Ireland. Sunny Tip. Moe VR, Mitsubishi, good cars in the long term. Mitsubishi makes some great cars, kind of plasticky, very Japanesey, Asian feel about the whole thing compared to European ones, but some very clever stuff. So the PHEVs that they're doing, that PHEV really works well, but it's struggling to find homes because it's kind of got 3 engines if you think of it that way. So it looks a little bit expensive, and it's a PHEV, and people aren't really running at PHEVs just yet because they're either buying petrol, diesel, or electric. PHEVs are slowly gaining a couple of fans across the world, but that's about it really. Most people now are plumping for something like a Tesla. It's funny how many people bought and have a Tesla Model 3 but didn't actually watch a review of them at all, a proper Irish or even English review of them yet. But anyway, maybe it's funny. But Mitsubishis are good cars, honest cars. They won't break down. Very reliable machines. but just kind of sometimes they feel a little bit too plasticky for my liking. Andy McAfee is in the house. Good man. Mark Turner Smith, good afternoon, Bob and all. Double tasking today, watching you in the British Touring Car Championship. Always love British Touring Cars, great. Always a far better than F1 tis. Was great shame Mondella Park lost beat TCC. Yeah, I know. Well, you see, we've only got the one track, and for the touring cars from over here is a massive expense on the ferries and trying to pull all the cars over here. It's just a lot of money. And because we only have one track, if we had 3 or 4 tracks across Ireland, they could come over for a period of a few weeks and do, bits and pieces over here and then be gone again off the island. But because of lack of infrastructure, lack of a tunnel, lack of a bleeding bridge between us and England, that meant they're stuck taking ferries, and it's very expensive. How do you gain press cars and the eligibility requirements for it? Well, it's quite simple. You just ring them up and say, I want a press car, and they go no or yes, depending on what happens. Generally speaking, so this is a weird job that I have, a very weird job, and very few people actually do it on the entire planet, let alone in Ireland, where a very, very small few people do it. Out of like 5 million people in Ireland, maybe 50 people in the whole country get press cars. So it's quite a small group, and everybody knows everybody. I know every journalist working in Ireland today. I know ones that are trying to get in, and know ones that are not trying to get in. Generally speaking, everybody asks everybody about the job. So how you go about doing it, first of all, is get an audience. So what used to happen was you worked in a newspaper as maybe the sports editor or as, I don't know, news editor or whatever, right? And you had an interest in cars, and so you wrote a column about cars, and eventually you gained press cars. So you instantly had an audience because you were already working in a newspaper. That metric is kind of gone. A lot of people don't put any emphasis on newspapers anymore, and a lot of smaller outlets, small local newspapers, don't get press cars at all. They don't have anyone working in press for cars, and they want to keep it that way because it's an expensive thing, and a lot of people don't want criticism of cars in a newspaper because the local dealership is the big advertiser, and so they don't want to touch it. They don't want to go near it. Big outlets have individuals working in them. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 contributors. Sometimes there's 1 or 2 contributors in a big national outlet. But generally speaking, it's the offset. So there's a main guy getting the press cars and all the trips, and then there's this other person who picks up the slack, who can't make everything, but turns on some of it. So it can be a difficult one to try and get started, and it's a very difficult one. The best way to kind of get started at the moment is either start your own channel, start your own outlet, start your own blog, make sure you're reporting the news, make sure you're taking a general interest in the entire realm of it, try and build an audience without looking for press cars in the first place, and then go after the press car end of it, or get a job in an existing publication that doesn't have a motoring journalist. The most important part is your opinion. Opinions can't be given without experience. Honest to God, I saw in Aldi this week. Is it Aldi or Lidl? I don't know if I have it here. Maybe I don't have it here now. I might get rid of it. Aldi are doing a reader, a little code reader for your car, and you can buy it. It's like €17, and I guarantee there's going to be a pile of people who would buy that yoke and walk out and think they're a mechanic. Right? You're not. A code reader is a thing you can buy off Amazon for $9, like dirt cheap. But I don't have it now. But it's to be a motor journalist, to make that judge, I think it takes 6 months. I think it takes 6 months of every single week getting 1 or 2 press cars. Then after 6 months, you really start to learn the subtle differences between one car and the other. It's very easy to walk out and review an X5 or a BMW X7 or something. You kind of sit in there and go, wow, this is amazing stuff is in that. That's really easy. Now, can you review a Hyundai i10 on a cold, wet Tuesday, when there's little else to talk about? Or the third Volkswagen you've had in a row and they're all basically the same. So I can do it. That's the hard bit. But eligibility requirements, really, there's only one, is to be over 25 is usually the one, because that's insurance rather than the car companies will give it out to anybody. But the insurance companies don't like the idea of someone under 25 driving press cars. Other than that, just ask. Andrew Daly says, sorry about the Irish rugby result, Bob. It was an awesome game. It was a brilliant game. Japan played phenomenally. Japan were there to win, boys. That's how they won. They played with heart. The Irish team played very professionally, but the Japanese had nothing to lose that day, and they played like we used to play years ago. Their tails were in their air. They were ready to run all day long, and they were, if you watched them there coming on and off, they were swapping out some of the subs. Lads were trying to run off the field and they couldn't walk. They were that tired. They were just so tired. And so it was a great result for Japan, bad result for Ireland, but you know, we can't win everything. And as I was talking to a New Zealand friend of mine last night, Tony Swenson, thanks Tony, who texted me instantly from New Zealand to commiserate in his own New Zealand way. They said that we're going to be playing them in a few weeks' time. So we'll see how that turns out. But I know today Wales won today against Australia, which is fantastic. So that's really good for Wales, and it's good for us because we played Wales a few times, so we know what they're like. So that should be good. But it was a great game of rugby, I have to say. I really enjoyed it. I was up yesterday morning watching it as well. Zdenko is in the house. Come on, Zdenko. What do you think of used Land Rover cars? Don't go near them unless you know how to fix cars. Depending how old it is, you are definitely, no matter what lads say on YouTube, you are definitely going to have to fix something on anything Land Rover, Range Rover, or Jaguar. It's just the nature of the cars. They are the pinnacle of all things cool, electronic gadgetry. They throw everything at a car. Pure luxury. The experience is fantastic, but I guarantee it, you are going to have to fix something on it because it's just the way. It's just the way of those cars. Most British cars require repair in some way or another, but particularly Land Rover and Range Rover. They're phenomenal. I love them. My number one still go-to car for the Euro Millions would be a Model X Tesla or a Land Rover or Range Rover Vogue. Will be the top one. So it's just me. It's just like, yeah, I want one of them. But I would have won the Euro Million, so I wouldn't give a crap if it broke down. I'd just buy another one. But if you're looking for an old one, just expect you're going to have to fix it. Learn how to fix shock absorbers, track rod ends, suspension arms, engine mounts, diesel filters, all that stuff. They're all the same. They all have to be fixed. Fresher Crema, like coffee. Got confirmation from official Skoda dealer that there are two updates available for Scala. One is the 1.5 TSI Evo, and another one might already know and better be sure. The problem I have with the Skoda Scala it had a ferocious vibration when it was at lower revs during acceleration, particularly when it was cold, and just a lack of power. You put your foot down, 180 horsepower, you slam your foot to the floor, huge big empty nothing, and then bang, all the power comes at once, and it was really weird. So I wasn't really keen on that. That was particularly attached to the 7-speed DSG, which is very smooth, but it still has a cylinder shutdown problem, lots of other little issues as well with it. I just thought it wasn't good enough. I really didn't think the Scala, or Scala, however you pronounce it, really did what it was supposed to do. I think it could have been a great car, but I think somewhere WLTP and electric cars and stuff are coming out, and the Scala kind of got shoved around a bit, and Volkswagen ran out of money and things. You know, all kinds of things happen at once with the Scala, and I think it kind of floundered because of that, and I think it will continue to flounder for the next while as well. Zdenko says, any thoughts about the new Nissan Juke? I will be going to Barcelona to test the brand new Nissan Juke in 2 weeks, I think. I can't remember if it's 2 weeks or a week, or it's not next week. I think it's the week after, maybe. I'm going over to Barcelona for a couple of days. I still think it's going to struggle to find homes. I still think without an electric version, without a full BEV version, I think all the car companies are struggling at the moment, because you have to remember, all the cars we're seeing launched this half of the year were all designed 4 or 5 years ago. And we've only had like 2 years of really kind of push in electric cars. So because it's only been like 2 or 3 years where there's been this kind of, you know, snowball effect, and particularly this year, a lot of the cars we're seeing launched they feel old before they're even launched. It's weird, you know. You jump out of some of the modern stuff into some of the diesel things, you go, why is this diesel? Why is this not electric? You know, and it occurs to you. But I still see a future for electric and petrol for the next 10 years or so, without a shadow of a doubt. I think you can't just switch over all electric. Literally the other day, in a wholesale market where electric prices are falling across the world, ESB networks up the price in Ireland by 2.5%. Why do you think that is now? Why? Just to use that great big brain of yours up there for a second, why would you think they'd put the price up when it's all falling? Because they foresee a point where it's not going to fall in the future and they'll be able to put up the price again, but it'll be 6 or 8 months from now when you won't notice it. You should bring your barber man on for a live chat. He's doing his own thing, I'm afraid, and that's what he wants to do, and I'm sure away he goes. If he wants to, Shane, no harm done whatsoever. Mo AV, in ROI, are colleges as good and the minimum wage? Are colleges as good as the minimum wage? Don't know. What's minimum wage? Minimum wage here is $10.75 or something an hour, I think something like that. That's in euro, but everything costs a fortune here. So things aren't that cheap. Like eating out is expensive. Going to the bar is expensive. Very expensive place to live. Very expensive place to live. Rents are phenomenally high in this country. So minimum wage is meaningless here, you know. Kenneth Fitzpatrick, I drove the new Jag F-Type yesterday, good man, £300, 300B, what's that, 300B? Have you driven it, what do you think? I've driven the old Jag F-Type a number of times, one of my all-time favourite noisy animals out there on the road by a mile. That sound is just outstanding. I have not driven the brand new one. If there's an update, a major update or a major change to it, I haven't driven it. I will desperately miss the noise when it's all electric, boys. I will desperately miss the V6 wail of that car up along the road. It's phenomenal. There's 2 videos I think on my channel of F-Type, or maybe 1 or 2. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, but there's a few videos of F-Type on my channel, so you can have a root through them and hear that noise for yourself. It is absolutely amazing to sit in the car and hear that roar and have people outside the car on the M50 point at you and go, will you go on, I want to hear it. It's funny. Mark Turner Smith, I agree with your comment, Bob, about the VW Group 1.5 TSI 150 PS. The running issues must be something about mapping, etc. Had the 1.4 TSI 150 PS in a VW and thought it was powerful, etc. for its size. What have VW done? I'm sure, Mark, it's down to the emissions. I really do think it's something to do with emissions. Cars are being detuned, and it's also something to do with the Dieselgate thing and all. You know, it's all that sort of stuff that horsepower is kind of going down in petrol and diesel cars, and they're also trying to lower down how fast it accelerates. So they're not talking so much about torque figures or 0 to 60 times or 0 to 100 times. They're talking more about CO2 emissions, but they're still telling you about the horsepower. The horsepower is, wow, it's 150 horsepower, it's brilliant, but actually it takes you ages to get the 150 horsepower actually to work for you. A lot of vibrations, a lot of kind of weird noises, and it's that engine. And I just think the Scala is I'm picking up the 1 litre Scala tomorrow, right? Which I think might be a better engine entirely for it. But I think the Scala is hampered by that 1.5 TSI rather than it being, it's phenomenally economical, for sure. Best fuel economy I've gotten over the last, it's got to be nearly a year, is the Toyota Corolla Estate, believe it or not. It got 3.9 litres per 100 kilometres, and it's a bloody petrol. I mean, it's a hybrid, but it's a petrol. Best fuel economy I've gotten in ages, and that's without really trying that hard. My God, there are so many of you watching now. This must be the busiest amount of people watching in one shot. If you click the like button and the subscribe button, if you haven't been here before, it's really good. My Patreon people that are out there already will be already watching the Skoda Scala video. So if you want to become one of them, click on the Patreon link down below and start giving over like £2 a month, even a £5 a month if you want to be really generous about it. You could also go over to PayPal and do a single payment if you'd like to. Otherwise, it's all free here. Everything's free. The chat is free. The coffee is free. This free because I'm drinking it and you're not invited. But that's okay. You can make your own coffee, I'm sure. That's really good coffee, actually, in fairness. It looks like it's brightening up outside. The sun is starting to come out. It'd be nice. The days are getting very short, aren't they? I know Ireland goes into dark mode this time of the year. You know, you start to get to the point where you wake up in the morning at 7 o'clock and it's a bit dark. And then we change that hour and it's dark all the time. It just seems to be dark all day long. But anyway, that's horrible. It's a horrible time. I think we should get rid of that hour forward and back crap. Trevor, talking about go safe vans, I seen one the other day parked on a footpath. Are they allowed to do this? No, they're not allowed to block footpaths or block public access ways or park in your gateway or park anywhere that would be normally illegal. Only Gardaí are allowed to do that. They're not Gardaí by any way, shape or form. The other day I was driving into Killy on the way to Tullamore and a fella was coming down the hill and he flashed the lights at me, and it was wonderful. Flash the lights at each other when you see a Go Safe van. Just flash the lights at everybody else coming at you, because that's how you warn them the Go Safe van is there. We're all on the same team here, guys. We're all on the same side. You get caught, nothing worse than getting caught for 3 penalty points and 5 kilometres an hour over the speed limit. Oh my God, I've done it. But anyway, coming into Killy, and then when I went into Tullamore, we're come back out, and there was a bloody Go Safe van on the way out of Tullamore as well. And then one on the other side of Killy. 2 of them out on the same road on the same day. They're all on strike at the moment, but I think it's just shooting fish in a barrel most of the time. They go to the same places, but you cannot, like any vehicle, you cannot block a footpath. You cannot block a public access way. You can't park where it's going to be hazardous for other traffic. So they have to park in places that is safe and at least somewhere or another not in people's way. But at the same time, we're all on the same team, and we all should be looking out for one another. So if you get a chance and you see a Go Safe van somewhere at any point, you make sure you warn everyone around you. Eric Rochford, thank you very much. Eric Rochford has become a pledger on our Patreon. Thank you very much, Eric. You're very kind. You can do the same from a little link down below. You're very good. Philip Roberts says, oh, no, that was he's talking a different thing. Oh my God, there's more Go Safe vans. I thought they're all on strike these days. Just past the Go Safe van in Limerick, still printing money. Now, I thought they were on strike. Maybe some of them aren't on strike. Maybe some of the lads have gone to work today. What they were complaining about, as far as I know, is toilet breaks and the availability of toilets to a Go Safe driver. Obviously, when they're in the middle of nowhere. Not that the average Joe really cares a jot about someone's ability to be able to go to the toilet. But I do feel for them in the fact they're stuck off out in the middle of nowhere. They're still human beings and still should have access to toilets. But at the same time, I think they should get themselves a different job. Because I really do think those Go Safe fans and everything else, they are a license to print money most of the time on the M50 or motorway. I haven't seen them on the M50, but they're coming. On the motorways, on the N7s, on those kind of places where nothing happens. Nothing. The chances of an incident is so low. And there they are, sitting there going clickety, 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 clickety. 3 points, 3 points, 3 points, 3 points. And it's all going to a company called Applius Plus, which runs your NCT as well, by the way. Maybe. Raymond Gray says, my point is, Bob, inside 50 kpmp area or 50 kilometers per hour areas, very few drivers will keep the speed in the built-up area. That's true. To be honest with you, I'd be more in favour of people driving as the road dictates. Some 50 kilometre an hour zones are insane. They're too low. There's some 30 kilometre an hour zones that could easily carry 80. There's some 50s that could carry 100. It's very hard for a driver not to stray over the speed limit at 50 kilometres an hour. There needs to be a little bit, now at the same time you still have to use your head. You come up to a roundabout and there's 50 kilometre an hour zone, you should be slowing down. There's an area to that part. In built up areas, it is very hard to keep your speed limit, but it very much depends on the road that you're on, and very much depends on what's happening as well. Brian Jorgensen says, hey Bob, nice to see you again. I'm thinking to buy a Tesla Model 3. What kind of service is there on a car in the guarantee period? What's that? And what can I expect to pay? By the way, I love your accent. Thanks very much. You get a lot of the 33 and a third stuff accent that comes around here as well. But Tesla Model 3 is about on average for what Tesla prices their cars at. It is priced a little bit above something that Kia or Hyundai would do, but then Tesla do charge a premium. As for run-in services around that in a car, there's no servicing on electric cars realistically until something goes wrong. So they do an inspection once a year where they just plug into a computer. It checks for errors and stuff, and it's looking for bulbs out and lights out and stuff. And mechanically, the parts underneath, like the discs, brakes, and the suspension and the track rods and things, they're all the same as a normal car. But the engine stuff, there's no servicing at all on an engine. So it's quite cheap to maintain an electric car in that respect. I'm sure they will bring in a nominal charge at some point, like 50 quid or 100 quid or something, to go in and get some sort of a software update or something. These garages are nearly out of business. You have to be very aware at the moment that garages are going to struggle in the future to try and get customers to come in to service their car when their car doesn't need a service, and the car itself is going to book itself into a service eventually. So and humans being humans, you ignore the service light anyway, and you drive on for another 2,000 kilometers with the little light in the dashboard. But prices for Tesla, check your local region. Just go to tesla.com. It'll automatically redirect you to your local area, and it'll show you the prices there. Doability thing. You'll see the price at the bottom. Same in Ireland, there is a Tesla.com. It's tesla.com/IE, I think is the website. You can pay your deposit online. You don't even need to see the car. They sell it to you straight away. So that, of course, circumnavigates anyone who might actually want to review the car properly. And the minute you review a car, of course, Tesla go, no, you know you're wrong. You know, you closed that frunk wrong. You know that you press a button on the back of a seat wrong. You know, you're wrong. Not the car isn't wrong. You're wrong as a user. That's how Tesla work out things. Paul Glennon. Hi Bob, is there much of a difference between mid-range and top-range tyres when they're not herring around a race course? That's a good question, to be honest with you, Paul. Yes and no. So the old difference between a low-grade tyre and a high-grade tyre was there was more rubber in the tyre. That was the difference between the two. So the one at the bottom had a pile of plastic in the tyre. It lasted a long time. It gave you virtually zero grip, and that still exists today. Those tyres still are out there. You can still buy a very cheap starter tyre, which will last you a while. I've driven on them multiple times. Back when I was broke, still broke, but mostly not broke. But back when I was broke, definitely, I would buy the cheapest tyre I could find in any dealership and put it on my car. Which teaches you how understeer works and how oversteer works, because the car would just slide all over the road. But if you want to brake in any sort of reasonable terms, you need something around mid-range. Mid-range tyres have their own, they're a balance of usefulness versus price. They're not up the very top. They're not like Pirelli P1s or, you know, the Continental versus those. They're not the very top spec. They're in the middle of the whole lot. Mid-range is for everyday use. Buy one of those, you want to have a good bit of grip. You want to have a decent longevity. They'll last a good while. Although I did have Dunlops on my own car, and I see cracks all over the tyres, where I have one Continental tyre in the car, and that has no cracks. And they're all the same age, funny enough. I had a puncture and changed the tyre in the back. A rip puncture that ripped the tyre open. And changed it for a Continental. Continental lasts longer, even though they're both mid-range tyres. Grip-wise, unless you're on a track, the top spec tyre, I don't see. A mid-range tyre can easily replace that for day-to-day driving, but you will get slightly more grip in the corners and generally under braking, and particularly in the rain and inclement weather, from a top-range tyre than you will from mid-range. But it'll be marginal, really. It could be a big difference in price, but marginal difference in actual performance. Fresha Crema asked another question. The 1.5 TSI has 2 updates ready and should fix kangarooing. Normally applied during the next scheduled maintenance. However, just ask the dealership. They can, of course, do it earlier. I would advise that. So that press car, which is a press car, you'd imagine these updates would be done straight away to a press car, seem to have the kangarooing issue. I wouldn't call it kangarooing. It's much more of a hesitation in the engine, much more of an idea that the engine was trying to shut down 2 cylinders in the middle of acceleration. So it felt like it was going, I will 2 4 2 4 4, and away we go. And it just seemed to have this kind of a weird hesitation in it. There's Peter Doyle. Peter Doyle. Hi Bob, Peter here from Kilkenny. Just tried for the first time launch control on a BMW 335D. What a car, X-Drive, yeah. Couldn't believe how fast the car is. 4.9 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers. In diesel cars, amazing. I'm impressed. They are an amazing engine. This is where BMW invested their money in diesels, made a really good fist of investing their money in diesels, but in actual fact got caught out by this electric thing that's going on in the background, weren't ready for it. But the 335 X-Drive puts all of the power with launch control evenly through the wheels, but then in microseconds shoves the power to the wheel that's getting the least amount of traction. So it's just this amazingly pressured feel inside, relentless acceleration. And of course, that's what BMW are renowned for. On the Autobahn, you can go as fast as you want in a BMW and you won't notice the difference. They're amazingly fast cars, but not so brilliant kind of trundling about the shops in those bigger engines. I mean, BMW. I seem to be suddenly, all of a sudden, snotty. I don't know why. Anyway, MoAV colleges in the UK are like secondary school because there are 16 and 17-year-old who go there and it's tailored towards them. Yeah, well, colleges in Ireland are for 18 and above, generally speaking. I'll even suppose you can go further than that. There is some other ones. Andy Era. That's a very Irish name, Andy Era. Hey, Bob. Good to see you again. Thanks very much. Well done on your channel. Good to see that the channel is growing and there's lots of petrol heads. There is a few. Just a quick one. What do you think about the nano ceramic paint protect? Whoa, there is a lot of paint protection stuff going on. A lot of technology involved in what's happening right now. So everything from wraps to getting serious ceramic stuff on the outside, which is really good because you can't see that line. So if you do a wrap, which is very cheap, you can see a line, particularly along the bonnet lid. You know, people do the wrap around the bonnet, around the headlights to protect against stone chips. You can also do ceramic kits on the outside when you're doing the paint on the outside. So it's an option. I think in some cars you can get it. Maybe some of the Ferraris, Lamborghinis offer it as an option on their cars, but it is generally optional across the range. If you are determined to mind your car, definitely nano paint protect or ceramic paint protect is good. But if you are like me and you're willing to touch the car up every once in a while, you could just do a wrap, or you could just leave it alone, let the car do its own thing. It's a good option, and you can also, there's another good option as well, which Irish people completely ignore, which is the anti-rot system underneath. You can get a coating under the bottom of your car, which stops the wheel arches all rotting and stuff over years. It's normally reserved for countries that salt the roads, like the UK or Canada, but we actually salt the roads here now as well. We have now mixed salt into our, in what used to be just grit we put on the roads. But yeah, it could be worth, if you look at the cars, worth minding. If you have a serious machine, you want to look after it, you could get that ceramic paint on your car, on particular parts of it if you want, or do the whole thing in it. But it's a bit expensive. You want to be making sure you're going to get the return from it. Andy, just Andy, that's a good name, Andy. Hi Bob, have you seen the Great Value MG ZS EV? A lot of ways put great value in quotation marks, and if so, what do you think of it? I have seen it. I haven't driven it. MG is in the UK only. They don't have press cars here and that. I've had no contact with MG actually over there since. Generally speaking, if something looks good value or looks too good to be true, it usually is. MG does not have a great history. In theory, it has a great history for some fancy cars, but all of them, how many MGs you still see on the road? Like, they're all broken. Now, I know another company's taken them over. And actually I think it might be hampering them to be called MG because the history's gone now these days. I'd be very cautious of buying something off an MG, just support wise. What happens with updates, software updates, what happens when your battery starts to only take 50% charge or something. Do you have to drive it back to England again, or are you in how can you get the thing? So be very careful of that sort of stuff. Think about established companies out there that are selling stuff and how easy it is to deal with them. 2020 is going to change everything when it comes to car ownership. I think there's a huge momentum of force on right now. It won't be just electric. It's the way we own cars, we lease cars, the way we PCP cars, whether we ever need to actually own a car, whether we just pay a small fee every month and kind of drive whatever car we want. It's all changing out there. So I'd be very careful of buying into something like MG, which look on the face of it like they're doing some good work, but realistically, how many dealerships are there? How long will they be there? How long before they're priced out of the market? Is Volkswagen going to come with the ID3 and just stamp all over everybody with the price of the thing? They can't afford to do it either. Don't forget, Volkswagen are in trouble with money just as much as any German car company at the moment. But we'll see how that turns out. It looks good. MG looks good. ZS. But as an EV car, I think I'd rather have something a little bit more established, like a Nissan Leaf or something that's going to last a bit longer and that you're going to get the wear out of and it'll just work for you. Mihal Healy, I take it that's Mihal, or Michael with a photo over the top. Hi Bob, love the channel. Thanks Mihal. Just bought a low mileage 151 24 kilowatt Leaf as a second car. I reckon we'll do the vast majority of our car journeys local with one adult, a few kids. Thoughts? Yeah, you've probably done the right thing. If it's your second car, you shouldn't have any problems with it. Really, a 24 kilowatt Leaf is a town car. It's designed for just pooling around a town. But I would suggest that maybe 6 or 8 months from now, you're going to be in a position where you've gotten used to the idea of having an electric car. It'll become a second nature thing to you. And you'll find that you'll be able to go a little bit further because you have a bit more confidence in the car, its range, its ability. The biggest problem I always have with electric cars is the infrastructure around it. So if I'm sitting here in Portlaoise, now Portlaoise, just so everyone, if you're not from Ireland, Portlaoise is basically in the middle geographically of Ireland. So if you look at a map and put a finger in the centre of the country, we're nearly there, nearly geographically. So I can be in Limerick, which is the other side of the country, the west coast, in about an hour and 10 minutes. I can be in Dublin in about an hour, and that's along a motorway. the connection between the motorway I exist on, the M7 and the M6, which is the M8 or the M6, whichever one is the one that goes from Galway to Dublin, there's no connection between the two. So you drive on these B roads all the way there. And there's no charge points between here and there. The nearest charge point is on the other motorway. It's very far away. So it takes a long time for you to get used to the idea of how far you're going to have to drive to get there and how difficult it's going to be while you're there and what you're doing. It's just a hard thing to get used to. But once you get used to it, it becomes a really straightforward thing to do. And you'll find that you probably, the second car becomes the primary car after a while because you realise it's all free. It's all very cheap to drive. It doesn't cost very much to run. It can be very straightforward as well in that respect. I'm still getting stuff coming in from beautiful. More lovely Patreon people have subscribed. Don't mention my name. It says there. That's fine. It's okay. I've also got an email here that is not to be read out. It says to read out the email. Okay, I won't read out the email. Which is good. Yeah, I'll look through all them in a minute. I'll get to all of those in a second. Where else are we? Graham Russell. Hi Bob, what do you think that Land Rover have gone to upmarket with new Defender? Yeah, they have, really. It's a gorgeous looking car, don't get me wrong, but the Discovery in traditional sense, I'm not going to be sexist here, but in traditional sense, the Discovery was sold to people who brought kids to school, right? So they brought the kids to school, and maybe they were a commercial thing and they needed a big yoke at the back. They needed something hanging around, space to put things in. 4x4, maybe on the weekends they went off onto the race courses, or they had a little farm holding or something. Whatever. That's who bought a Discovery. The people who bought a Defender are the people who drove it into a muckball field. They were rescuers. They were guys who wanted to get to the top of a mountain. Mountain rescue was all Land Rovers. Because you could fix them with a hammer. It didn't require any big technical details to fix them. That thing is made of plastic, that new one. You're not going to be fixing that with a hammer. Just got a big super chat before we go any further. Evil Mira gave me 50 sec. What's a sec? Anyway, no problem. Thank you very much. You're very good. Whatever 50 sec is, I'm sure it's fantastic. I very much appreciate you, sir. Or madam, maybe. Hey Bob, my first car was a Skoda. One of the ones you reviewed, actually. I'm still riding it. Hope you're having a good day and driving safe. I am, and you are too. Thank you very much for your support on the channel. You could do the same, by the way, as a person. If you want to super chat, is the little $sign that is down below the chat there, if you want to use that, or PayPal or Patreon, any one of those three. Or you can buy something at one of the shops, which are all set up there too, which means you get something like a t-shirt and I get a little cut from it. It doesn't cost you any extra. Anyway, where was I? The new upmarket Defender. Yeah, it looks good. I mean, I've seen the Frankfurt Motor Show. It looks nice, and I poked about inside it. I was talking to Matt Watson for a brief moment about it. I was talking to a few other lads about it as well. Yeah, we all agree it's lovely looking. I just don't agree that it's different enough from a Discovery. It looks too much like Discovery now. And it's very upmarket. There's lots of carpet and things gone into it, which shouldn't have been there in the first. It should be made of granite and mahogany and have a sledgehammer in the boot so you can fix the wing on it. That's kind of what Defender was. So I think Land Rover have alienated their Defender owners, the ones who were supporting it all these years, in favour of going after the Chelsea tractor owners who think they want something a bit better. We'll see how it turns out. With sales wise, who knows? Jerry, the designer there, I met him a couple of times. He's still mad in the head. He's a lovely guy, but he's mad. Very cocky, self-sure, confident, and I like him for all of that sort of stuff, but I think this might be a little bit too far over the line when it comes to whether people like it and hold on to it forever or not. Mr. Scott316 says, Bob, what are your thoughts on the Skoda Superb Sport line or L&K 2019-2020? What engine would you recommend? There is a hybrid Superb on the way. There is possibly an electric one on the way, or a BEV version of it, which would be sort of more of a compliance car, more because they have to do it. I still would be a favour of you getting a Sportline diesel. And I know this is going against the grain, lads. I know everyone's going, God, you can't have diesel. They're terrible. They're killing the environment. But you know what? You're going to get the best MPG out of it. You're going to get the best mileage of it. You're probably going to, if you're doing any sort of long driving at all, driving from place to place, commuting back and forward every day, and you're not doing it in a city, then a diesel is going to be the best way out for you at the moment. Next year, maybe a hybrid will do it. Superb is a big car. If you get a Superb Estate, it's a really big car. An electric car or a hybrid car won't haul that thing around. And it's hard if you want to tow something, you have a caravan or you want to tow a trailer or anything. Diesel's still the only thing that can do all that sort of stuff. It's still nearly impossible to find anything electric that can do any sort of decent towing. So I would go for a Sportline in some weird ass colour, estate version, DSG, 2 litre diesel. Try and get, I think there's 180 horsepower in the 2 litre diesel. I think it's somewhere around there. That's the one I'd go for and hang out for that. I'm going to the world premiere of the reveal of the Octavia in a couple of weeks' time or a few weeks' time. So I would expect the Superb to be on the back end of that because the Octavia is older slightly than Superb. I'd say there's going to be a new Superb. There has to be a new Superb though, wouldn't there? Really? It's one of the best cars they make. Mark Turner Smith. Last week, Bob, you couldn't remember the hybrid Golf you drove, GTE, Golf GTE ceased production recently. Was not sure the return, but saw various press spy shots of the Mark 8 GTE Golf. Well, you know, spy shots are spy shots. They don't know what they're looking at, to be honest with you. I've stood and watched the press cars or the cars pass by, the test cars pass by, all camouflage and stuff. I can't imagine Volkswagen are going all electric. They are going to release the whole range of ID. I think the new Golf is going to be initially maybe in petrol, maybe in hybrid PHEV, and it'll be an electric version as well, like the e-Golf. But I think it'll be one of the last generations we see with anything even remotely diesel or electric or a mix of the two, or performance wise. I think all the performance that Volkswagen is going to do in the near future is going to be electric. They've only got so much money out there for sure. You know, Volkswagen are well, like all German car companies, they're kind of struggling at the moment because they just don't have the ability to push forward very fast like the Chinese are. The Chinese are murdering it, boys. You're going to see an awful lot more Chinese stuff coming out in the market here, or car companies who are being bought out by Chinese slowly but surely. They kind of take little bits. Thoughts on Golf GT? By the way, I'm answering questions from 2:29 p.m, so I'm already a half an hour behind you. I am sorry, but I am trying to catch up. Thoughts on the Golf GTE, Bob? Always fancy one. Budget probably only ever mean older ones. Buy the older one. Yes, a great car for sure. It's just a great car. I love that car. Makes all the right noises, all the right time. Really good little car, that thing. And still, it's a Golf. It's going to be a 5-door, plenty of space in the boot. Plenty of room in the back seat for 3 people. Just a really good, honest car. And in GTE forms, pretty good fuel economy. And because it's a Golf, it always holds on to its price. It always seems to do well. You'll always find someone who wants to buy a Golf. You'll never be stuck with a Golf, for sure. Stephen Woolart. I've seen on other EV YouTube talks about a third revision VW e-Golf, all the same but only longer range, and drive an e-Golf 2019. You hear any news about it would be strange now after ID3 launch. Well, what I think Sven, what I think is actually happening is that Volkswagen will have a 2-speed economy for a bit. So they'll have an ID range. They'll have a range of cars starting with ID3 and working our way. Maybe there'll be an ID4, there'll be an ID Cross, there'll be an ID something else. But at the same time, during the transition, because you have to remember they've got factories that are designed to produce ICE engine cars running alongside factories that are producing electric engine cars. So we will see a Golf come out. We will see a new Golf. We'll see a new electric Golf, new hybrid Golf, new e-Golf come out as well. We'll see this kind of 2-speed thing happen for a few years, and then they'll wane off on the ICE engines and concentrate more on electric only. Depends on who finds home. The problem is they can't make enough ID3s. They can't even start delivery until next June. You know, it's a very long way off. Like, if I was looking at electric cars right now, I would 100% wait. And I know that sounds like really bad advice, and the car industry will have a heart attack right now. But if you're looking for an electric car and you're buying a Model 3, you're insane. Because right now, they're coming to a point where they're crescendoing, right? They're getting to the point where everybody's talking about Model 3s. Everybody's talking about Model X, Model S, and Model Y, and whatever models that are coming as well, the little roadsters. But in actual fact, big car companies are now producing mainstream electric cars that are going to compete directly with what Tesla's trying to do. So I think if you just wait till like mid next year, maybe March next year, we'll know better how Brexit is landing. We'll also know better how everybody's landing, you know. There's somebody has just donated money by PayPal. You're very good. Thank you very much. I'll find your name now in 1 second. Raymond Grace, you're very good. Thank you very much, Raymond Grace, for donating some money by PayPal. You're very good. Thank you. It's very much appreciated. Honestly, every single week, it's hugely appreciated. There's no payments at all come in from car companies or otherwise. So if you can support the channel, it'd be brilliant if you could. So yes, there will be a revision of the e-Golf for sure. There will be an e-Golf coming in because it's very popular first time out, just arranged a bit short, and it amounted to be a kind of a compliance car. So a car, they had to have an electric car, so they kind of brought out an electric Golf because it's space in the thing to do it. So they did. Sorry, I had a bit of a jump forward there again. Still, YouTube has never fixed that problem where I'm scrolling through the text and I get to the end and then it just loads everybody's comments to the bottom, so I miss out on tons. JV says, what do you think about the Astra being 3-cylinder now? I think Opel's in deep doo-doo. That's what I think right now, actually, to be honest with you. Opel is very much struggling in Ireland. They're very much, and a friend of mine has taken over, or will take over as managing director of Opel very soon. But I think Opel generally is struggling very hard in Ireland to find homes because Opel was bought out by Peugeot PSA Group, and Peugeot then managed to take basically everything that made Opel good and brought it into Opel, or brought into PSA, and left kind of Opel hanging. And so Opel now have launched their electric Corsa, which I saw at Frankfurt, but of course Peugeot is launching their 208 next month, which I'm going to the international launch of. So it's very hard for them to make headway. Now when you go into 3-cylinder engines, which are very good, but realistically if you can make a 3-cylinder engine really work well, you should be probably driving an electric car. And 3-cylinder suits things like Seat Mii, Skoda Citigo, Hyundai i10, the Kia Picanto. They're all good as 3-cylinder engines, but an Astra, no. No, it's going to be it's a big car for a 3-cylinder, you know. That's a lot of work for 3 little cylinders to do. So how it works is cylinders, what the top of cylinders is the pistons inside. So how many cylinders? There be 3 spark plugs in a 3-cylinder engine, right? So a 3-cylinder engine does the work of a 4-cylinder engine but only has 3. So it does this kind of a weird vibration when it's ticking over and stuff because there's 2 cylinders going up and 1 going down. It does this weird, and you can offset that. You can make them all do an accordion effect, but it doesn't really work that well. It makes more vibrations than less, but it's easy to service. 3-cylinder engines, they're easy to maintain. They're simple engines. I mean, simple things to look after. But I just don't think in an Astra, if you'd have said we're going to put a 3-cylinder engine to a Golf, I'd be the very same. It's just it's too small an engine. Won't be very smooth for such a big car. I still doubt even there's a 1 litre in a Skoda Octavia that I still have doubts about. I love driving a thing, but I still have doubts about how long that engine would last. Fresha Krama says he's all out of coffee. What's wrong with you? Get some coffee. Go to the shop. Wait now. Watch the rest of the Sunday service, then go to the shop. Paul Hickey, does the Seat electric car look more impressive in real life than the VW i3 looked that way in photos? It certainly does. The Seat car looks amazing, but we are looking at Seat in that sort of a burnt red colour. You know, it's the colour of the car you're looking at as well, whereas you're looking at the ID3 in its real colours under lights as well. I've seen neither in the real life, standing in a grey day, you know. So I'll wait till I see which one is going to look nicer in real life. It's the real life colour that always works out a bit better. Still, so many of you watching this is fantastic turnout for today. Again, it's 3 o'clock. We're already 1 hour in, so hopefully you have asked your question and I might be able to get to your answer. I'm still about a half an hour behind you because there's just so many of you asking questions there, which is fantastic. Ask away as many as you can have. We'll just stick here until all of the questions are answered. I'm hoping to bring out a Q&A video during the week as well, a video where I pick out 3 or 4 questions and do like a 10-minute piece on those questions rather than flicking through hundreds of questions here in one flash. Michael Healy's a very generous man right there. He's just donated some money by Super Chat. You're very kind. Thank you very much, Michael. Mini Eggs has joined us as well. Thanks, Mini Eggs. Mini Eggs sent me mini eggs once upon a time as well. So you know that? Really, actually, I got sent mini eggs. It was great. Hi, Bob. I'm doing some research and I thought this might be useful. FYI. When Audi Connect trial expires, wireless CarPlay stops working unless you subscribe or disable the car data module infotainment. Isn't that insane when you think about it for a minute. BMW are doing the same thing in the USA as well. You have to pay a subscription for Apple CarPlay to work and Android Auto. And I think Audi is going the same route by the looks of what that comment is. And it's all going to... What they're trying to see, the problem is they don't make money from selling you a car anymore. Cars are sold at near cost because it's such a big industry these days that to shift thousands of cars to even begin to remotely get near profit. So they kind of do this breaking even effort the whole time. And so they're looking for subscription ways. That idea, and I've been harping on about this for years as well, this idea that you become the Sky bill. So when you bought your initial Sky, they gave you sports or movies or something, and they said they're going to charge you 30 quid a month for 18 months, and then you'd pay 80 quid a month. Or, just very quietly, these little numbers appear at the bottom. After 18 months, you've forgotten that you're getting Sky at this stage. You just take it for granted it's there. And suddenly your bills are 80 quid a month, not 18, right? And but you still continue to pay it. I know people who pay the maximum amount of Sky bill that you can have, all the channels, but to just watch BBC One, which you can have as a Freeview channel. So the same will apply to cars. They want you to pay a subscription fee. I think ESB will go the same route when they're talking about charging on the street. I think you'll pay a tenner a month or 20 quid a month or whatever it is. You can use all the charge points for nothing, just to become that. Whether you charge or not, you're going to pay some money towards charging. I really do think that's going to happen. I think you're going to get ripped off as an electric car owner. It won't be initially, it won't be straight off the mark, it won't be next month or next year, but over the next couple of years, as it progresses, as 50% of the market becomes electric, I think that's when we'll start to get ripped off at the highest order, because that's how Ireland works. I'm telling you, I warn you now, mark it in your calendars to come back to me in 12 months time and tell me that ESB prices haven't risen, that you're not paying a lot more for on-street charging than you thought you were going to be. All these things are coming at you 100%. Right now you control your petrol, your diesel, your hybrids. You control that. You control it. If we give that control away to the ESB or someone else, you're just going to end up getting killed. And Brexit is going to murder us as well, that's for sure. The car industry is in trouble already without Brexit. And now when we Brexit, it'll be in even more trouble. Sven Woolart says, always have instant coffee as a backup when the beans run out. Cheers in Belgium. You always have to have a backup plan when you're talking about coffee. There has to be coffee there available at all times. Brendan Hessian says, hi Bob, can you see big problems with the second and third hand plus EV market, with the likes of dealers having to keep them charged for customers to test drive, continue to cost money and other problems? Yes. Okay, so let's talk for a minute about battery technology. Right. I have this phone, right, which I just got from China or somewhere. I don't know. It's a what's it called? I forget. A Xiaomi Mi A3 or something it's called, right? And in my jacket in the hall. And the problem is this battery can take 100% charge, and it's 4,100 milliamp hours, I think. So it really lasts a long time. It lasts like a couple of days, even under heavy load. You can play games and things on as well. I also have an iPhone, which is a bit older. Now that says to me in the battery that it keeps about 83 or 84% of its maximum charge. Now that's miserable for a couple of year old battery. So imagine you buy a brand new electric car, and in 5 years time the battery will only charge to 80% of its value, right? Now if I hook up my little OBD system and click in and have a look and see what that is, what happens then? You look at it and go, 80% of its charge. I don't want this car. It's crap. That's like $5,000 to fix that, or $6,000. Who knows? The problem is, who knows? So when you get to a point, you look at Generation 1 Nissan Leaf today, a car that could do maybe 130 kilometers, maybe 100 to 130. Look at Renault, what's that big car called? Fluence Electric ZE1. Same battery, same technology underneath. The original Renault Zoe, same problem, same batteries underneath. They're not able to go as far as they were when they were brand new. So when they were absolutely spot on brand new, you could go 130 kilometers, 100 kilometers, whatever it was. Now you're doing 80 and you're charging up again, right? That's unacceptable. My car is a 13-year-old Seat Leon. My wife is about to drive up to town in the car, and it's able to do 600 kilometres range from new. It can still do that without a shadow of a doubt. I'd still be able to get that out of it as long as I stay out the motorway. So this problem of when you take in a used car and the dealership stand there going, oh, it's an electric car, come back, wow, deadly. Where do I charge it? How do I charge it? Do I charge it up now? You can't test drive it because I have to charge it up. Or do you keep it at 100%, which is what they advise you don't do it with battery powered anything, is not to charge it to 100% because it lessens the battery. Like, where's that going to end? I really do think in 5 or 6 years' time, we're probably going to start regretting this idea of jumping in at the very deep end of electric cars. I really do think we don't have the money to survive that long and to sell this many electric cars. We're not ready for it. The country's not ready for it. The infrastructure's definitely not ready for it. Miles behind. There are so many problems out there right now. Ionity is running into problems as well. I charged car twice from Ionity. Neither of them worked. Philip Nolan, another journalist here in Ireland, tried to charge 3 times from Ionity. None of them worked either. They're very nice on support, but none of their charging systems work first time. This is just going to be a disaster zone if it doesn't clean up along the way. And yet, you know, we're throwing out diesels. We're throwing them away. We're kind of going, diesel's bad, diesel's bad. But you know what? I got into that diesel car. I said, okay, it's got a flat tyre. But I got a diesel car over 1,100 kilometres range on one tank. And then you just go and go another 1,100 kilometres. It's deadly. Pavel says, Bob, what's the future of classic mid-sized cars like Passat, Insignia? The entire segment has minus 20% year-on-year sales decrease. The C5 is gone, the Avensis is gone, Accord is gone, Mondeo will be gone. What's next? Well, you see, there's two things that have happened there in that segment. One is that segment kind of existed. It started out as the family segment. So the family car in the UK and Ireland was a saloon car. That's how you told people you were doing well for yourself, right? You bought a saloon car, whatever car it was, or Vauxhall Viva, or it was a Passat, or you know, whatever the car was, it was a saloon car showed you were doing okay for yourself. A hatchback was something that the young people had, the just starting out cars, you know, little Micras and, you know, Nissans and things are out there that you could buy. So what's happened over the years is tastes have changed and people have decided that they want to have small SUVs now. They really, you know, they're after that kind of high seating position. They feel better up off the road. They're not into driving. They just want to get themselves from A to B, so they're not driver type people. And so what's happened is that has spilled over into the fleet market. Now this is where saloons continued to exist, was within a fleet segment. So fleet buyers, which I know a good few fleet buyers out there who regularly ask me questions about fleet stuff, but so fleet buyers were buying up things like Avensis, Passat, Mondeos. They were buying them up and giving them to sales reps. So it was a sales rep company would give out their saloon cars to it. That morphed into estate a little bit, but then estate didn't quite work out. Now it's gone into SUV. Now when you look at a fleet car sale, people, they start looking at different segments, see if they can get better value out of stuff. And SUVs is where it's at. So tastes have changed. And that means that the saloon car market is dying a death. Passat is dying off. Mondeo is dying off. You look at the sales generally, you're minus 20% year on year is dead on. I would suggest in certain segments it's even worse than that. Like Insignia has fallen off the face of the earth. You very rarely see them even on the road these days. And the same applies for Accord. They're gone completely. Mondeo sales is miserable amount of sales. Dealers aren't pushing them, people aren't looking for them, and so you're not going to see them. Now the second factor that's in that is not just people's tastes have changed. We're now looking at getting rid of diesel. Now it won't go, but getting rid of it in some degree on grand fleet sales. So what's the alternative? Petrol. So you got to make the car smaller and lighter because petrol is not as fuel efficient as diesel. So when you want to make it smaller and lighter, you can't have a giant big estate car or a saloon car hanging around. So it's got to be a big change. So it's a mix of tastes and a mix of what is available to people to buy out there. And there's just many more. You look at a good example of Skoda at the moment. You look at the Karoq, the Kodiaq and the Kamiq or whatever it's called. There's 3 cars that they've launched in the last 2 years and they're all small SUVs. One of them is a big SUV, but mostly small. Trevor, I've seen a GoSafe van in the same spot on the footpath twice now. Would mean seeing it as part of legally for all the people who caught would be void. That is very possible. If it's parked illegally and they're breaking the law, that I don't know if this ever come up in court, but it'd be worth raising. But it would mean going against, you know, when the penalty points appear in the post, it means you have to challenge them. and technically you're caught on the penalty points. You were caught. If you're speeding, you're speeding, right? So technically challenging them would be a waste of time. But I would for sure take a picture of that Go Safe van, and I would send a picture privately to the guards and ask them, well, this guy's parked illegally, he's blocking the bloody footpath, what can I do about it? And you'll soon find that will move, because generally people, those guys pull up where they think is right, and if they've pulled up there once and no one's challenged it, they'll continue to pull up there again. So when you challenge them, they tend to move off. I've done that. There was a Go Safe van not far from me. It's not there anymore. Neil Brandon, just a word of warning on the Tesla Model 3. One major issue for some of us is that it has a huge turning circle, 11.8 metres. See, I haven't driven it. If I'd have driven it, I'd know that would be a problem straight away, because one of the things I do test is the turning circle on the cars. If it's remarkable, I remark on it. If it's not remarkable, I won't remark on it. That's usually the way it is with most things. Model 3 will have more problems than a turning circle, I feel it in my bones that there will be more problems with that. There's more problems with Tesla than you imagine. There is a lot of emphasis on Tesla at the moment because they are ahead of the game and they're not playing the car game. So they're not doing discounts, free cars, press cars. They're not doing, the people who buy them have to buy them at full price as normal. That's the way they operate. That's fine. That's okay. So they're not playing that sort of game. But eventually, the people who are playing the game will come along and stand all over them. I just feel it coming. And I know I'm not against Tesla. I think they're doing brilliant work. I think they really are the disruptor of the car industry, and they were needed to come along. I think we needed a Tesla to come along and really annoy people into getting moving. But I think the problem is eventually car companies do get annoyed, and when they do, they are behemoths, absolute behemoths in the game, and they just come in and stand all over you. Just take all of your tech, steal it. There's a movie that Andy McAfee recommended to me, which I watched the other night, about the fella who invented the intermittent wiper and was selling the idea to Ford, and then they just took it off him, and he had to go and take a legal case against them. That's how car companies work. They just take your tech and go, well, it's mine now, do what you want. Or they just give you so much money you just go away. That happens too. Evine Allen, is that Evine? I'm just struggling with names today. Anyway, how are you, Bob? I'm going to look at a 2014 Seat Leon 1.6 TDI estate tomorrow with 100,000 miles. Is that miles or kilometres? Price is good, and I know the seller. Any advice, my man? Worry is the high mileage. Cheers. I wouldn't be so worried about high mileage, but what I would be worried about is a 1.6 TDI with high mileage, right? Bigger engines last longer. ICE engines, so 2 litres, 3 litre engines, they tend to just go around the clock, and the whole car will fall apart. The engine will keep on going. 1.6 was a good engine. Nice torque, good response, and decent fuel economy. You shouldn't have too many problems, but I would definitely look around the condition of the car. So at 100,000 kilometres, what happens is perishing. Write that word down in a dictionary somewhere and keep it by your side forever. Perishing is something rubber does on a car, right? So as a car gets older, if you've ever seen a fairly old, like an over 10-year-old car, you see a little bit of moss along the outside of the windows. That's just because it hasn't been washed in a while. But actually that moss is because there's tiny micro fractures happening in the rubbers along the seals. Those micro fractures are allowing moss to land because moss doesn't have roots. It's not a fungus. It's not that. It's moss is moss, but it has no roots, so it grows wherever it likes. It can grow on a wall, attached to a wall. It can grow in grass, but not in the roots of it. So it grows along the seals because there's little micro fractures it's able to hold onto there. So what I'd be much more worried about is a perishing of things like brake lines, servo lines, handbrake cables, bushings, the covers over bushings, so any of those kind of stuff, all underneath the car. Anything that's used as rubber, if it's wearing, you'll get creaks and noises and stuff. But over 100,000 kilometers, that engine should be okay as long as it's been serviced and you get a good service history with it. I hope you're getting a bargain out of it, because 100,000 kilometers miles is a lot. 100,000 miles is about 160,000 kilometers, 150,000 kilometers, something like that. It's a hell of a lot. So hopefully you're getting a good deal. But just perishing is a problem. Be prepared. You'll come out someday and you find that there's a knocking coming from the back of the car, and it's a seal off of one of the suspension arms just come apart. So it can happen for sure, but just bear it in mind that these things do happen as a car reaches that age, even though the year of the car doesn't seem that old. Age comes from miles, not from years. Which is why I look so youthful for a dude who's nearly 50. Neil Brandon. I have a lot of miles, but I don't have a lot of years. Neil Brandon. The E-Nero turning circle is 10.6 metres. Makes it much easier to drive and also much cheaper to buy, and one with a full 7-year warranty. See, that's what I always think about as well with the Kia stuff. 7 years. I know it's restricted to a certain mileage, but 7 years is 7 years. It's a long time. You look at some of my videos that are 7 years old. Look how young I look in it compared to what I do now. I look like an ancient old man now. 7 years is a long time. So bear it in mind. But like Tesla do good cars. Lots of people have bought Teslas over the years. Lots of people who've been waiting for Tesla Model 3. I think a lot of what they do, this idea that you pay the deposit online, you get very excited and your car turns up and you get all excited about it. And the people who get access to them, people who are evangelists about electric cars, get the access early. So you all get kind of hoodwinked into it, so to speak. There's no critical thinkers in Ireland driving a Model 3 who's going to critically analyse how good or bad that car is against this competition, because at the moment it doesn't really have any competition, so that's a scary place to be. Ribbit, ROBTT. I help run a community speed camera unit in North Yorkshire village. 30 miles per hour limit, school, shop, hotel, etc. Yet we continuously get people doing well over 45 miles per hour. Madness. Well, it's only madness if something actually happens. I'm a great fan of, you know, when you cut somebody off in traffic and you all got a bit of a fright, and then irate person comes out with 2 elbows. How dare you? Do you know what could have happened? If nothing happened, I think you should just get on with your life. That's really what it comes down to. And that's what I really admire about the French people, generally speaking. So you could crash into someone on the Arc de Triomphe and they probably will do their fingers at you, shake a fist at you, but they'll get on with their day. They'll just go on. It's fine. Whatever. You know? I think sometimes we worry so hard about what could happen that we end up doing nothing. And that's a mental health thing. So every once in a while I do this mental health stuff here on YouTube on this channel. And I do talk about that kind of thing. I'm not an expert in it, but I find people don't want to discuss this kind of idea that they're afraid of everything. They're afraid of going outside, afraid of crossing the road, afraid of getting a plane. Afraid because of hurricanes, afraid to do this, afraid to do that, or afraid because something might happen. So they overthink it so much that they end up doing nothing. And I'm a great fan of just kind of wondering, you know, even though people are speeding in an area or going through a village too fast or whatever it is, unless something has happened, unless it's become a regular, unless something really actually happened during that time, well, then you have lots more to worry about. You have other things you can worry about as well, you know. You wake up in the morning and worry whether you have cancer or something. You know, that's their worries. They're real worries. What you're going to do after you're dead is not a worry. So it's all this kind of perspective idea on what you can do to achieve what will be next for you. And the more you worry about something, the more you concern yourself with what could happen, the less you set out to achieve. And I'm more into doing and less into worrying about what's going to happen at the end of it. So, you know, as a community speeding, I'm all in favour for the kids on the street and stuff. People need to slow down. But if people are regularly speeding through, then there's a problem. If people, if once in a while you catch someone doing 45, well then, you know, it's once in a while. Maybe you need to adjust the road a little bit, maybe a little bit of driver education. I think a better thing to do is an advanced driving course than to have someone pay a fine. I would rather, instead of someone getting 3 penalty points or 6 penalty points on their licence, that they're forced to attend an advanced driving course where they have to go to Rally School Ireland or Mondello and spend a day doing donuts. Great fun. They're going to learn tons while they're there, and they come away a better driver. And that way you've improved their lot and you've got them to pay the fine because they had to pay for the course as well. So all kinds of things happen. Is Nokian a premium brand? I've never heard of them, so no, I don't think so. Nuno M. Hi Bob, hope everything is well. It is. Do you think it would be harder to import a car into Ireland if a no-deal Brexit happens? It would be impossible, is the answer to that question. The car industry has done an awful lot to pave the way to importing cars and making sure we can still get supply, because both new and used cars come through the UK to us at some point or another, most of them. Some cars come around Rotterdam, round the corner to Cork, right, or round the corner to Dunleary and get us that way. But more often than not, a lot of cars land in Southampton or they land in Dover and they get transported over on trucks to us. So that's the other way around, or they come through Belfast, which means they come across Scotland through Belfast and then down this way. So importing a car will either have to be done through Belfast or will not be done at all. That's kind of what's going to happen. And if we have to put up a wall, if there's no deal, technically we're supposed to put a wall up between us and Northern Ireland, and that's not going to be fun at all. How are we supposed to get up and down from there then? If you're going to buy a car from the UK, do it before Brexit, because then you know where you are. If you're going to wait till after Brexit, you're going to be in trouble, boys. For at least a few months anyway. Brexit is so close now, they're going to have to pull a trigger on something. They're going to have to decide somewhere, whether there's a deal or no deal. They can't just make up a deal on the 30th of October and go with that. They've got to go, one way or the other. Michael Healy says the minimum wage in Ireland is $9.80. The living wage is rated at $12.30. Living wage is like some sort of a makey-uppy thing though, isn't it, right? So the minimum wage is actually what employers have to pay as a basic amount of money, $9.80 per hour. But there's so many loopholes to that. So part-time and full-time and hours worked and extra hours and clocking in and clocking out and all that sort of stuff. There's all kinds of crap that goes on. But living wage, the idea of €12.30, that still isn't very much. Like if I got €12.30 right now and went up to town, I could probably buy my tonight's dinner out of that. And that will be it. Right? So you're going to have to work a fair whack out there to get enough money to pay your rent. Rent here is extortionate in Ireland. Extortionate. If you can find somewhere to rent anywhere. So 31% of Ireland lives in Dublin. Rent in Dublin is out the wall. Forget New York. Forget rent in New York. Dublin's more expensive than that, right? This is just the way it is. Compared to our wages, it's more expensive to rent here. But if you move outside Dublin, it does go down a little bit. But even here in Portlaoise, renting a 3-bedroom house is still going to be €1,200 a month. So it's not cheap to live in Ireland for sure. Anton Sturrison says, hi Bob, drove the Kia Picanto 100 brake horse, a great little car actually, when I was back in Sweden. Great fun to drive for what it is. Pity can't get it here. I would buy one in a heartbeat. I drove it quietly at a Kia event which was nothing to do with that car. We were driving other Kias and there happened to be a Picanto there. It's 100 horsepower, belonged to one of staff, and it had a roar up and on the road in it. Great fun. Feels like it's going to fall over inside, but it still feels like a shopping trolley. You just throw it into a corner, put your foot down. It's great fun. But really good. Kia Picanto is one of my favourite small cars, believe it or not, as a 5-door car. Still today, I still think it's one of the best little cars you can buy as a shopping trolley, as a real honest car you have around the house. You can work it every day. It'll put up with a 7-year warranty, 1-litre engine, 3-cylinder, great car. Michael Healy says that money I was talking about, the hourly wage, is for a full-time employee. Teenagers doing summer jobs or part-time workers are not included in the regulations, so companies try to get around it with 0-hour contracts and the like. He's right, 0-hour contracts. So again, put you in mind of what that means. It means this week I say to you, I need you on Monday, Wednesday and Friday, but you don't know what I want you for next week. So you could work 40 hours this week and 0 hours next week, and you're still my employee. I don't have to pay you. Now they try to combat that by saying you must, as an employee, you must work for 15 hours a week or something. There was some rule come out where they had to give you at least 15 hours a week. But of course there's hoodwinkery going on around that as well. Internships and all these unpaid placements. It's just nonsense, guys. You got to give people work. People have to work. If you're rich enough to support your child to go and get a job that doesn't pay any money, you're insane. How are they going to live through life with no money? For cars, yes, the VRT is a killer. Rent, etc. is similar, and the pattern is the same. Dublin, London is mental. The rest varies by region. Yep, you will find some cheap places to live over here, but they will be hovels. If you're going to rent, they have to be reaching a certain minimum standard, so everybody charges more for the rent out here as well. Evil Maria says, let's hope a Brexit doesn't happen and that Boris and his speculator friends don't get their money grubbing ways. Boris is just the same as Trump over in the US. I don't know how he got that job. Honest to God, I watched that man on television for years. I don't know how you just got him in. I don't know what you did wrong to get that man in the position he's in. I think he's the disaster since he got there. And I think the previous woman, May, was a disaster as well. I think she was just as bad as, and I'm not a big political fan for the UK, but they just seem like puppets or something, like some sort of like all these posh people who go to Eton and Cambridge and college and have no idea what real life is, what a job is like in Manchester, Birmingham, Edinburgh. They don't know what those kind of lives are like, what it's like to go to a job and clock in and clock out every day. They've no clue what that's about. We suffer it here in Ireland as well. Leo Varadkar is the very same, a lunatic. I don't understand how he even got where he is, but he's very sure of himself. So he sits down, he's very happy in front of camera. He sounds like he's very straight talking, but in actual fact, he's just a rich guy. He's after coming to the very top. He's a doctor, coming to the very top of his game. Now he's the leader of the country, and he's making decisions like, but you know what? I think we bring water charges in at some point. If you use too much, we just charge for water. And here we go again. Like, we're off again, man. And Boris is the very same. Mad, absolutely mad in the head. I don't understand how he's let him get in the position he is in. He's going to ruin your country for you. It's terrible to see Britain, and I have friends over there, Britain and England and the UK, just rip itself apart. And that's what's going on right now. Anyway, David Salome says, hi Bob, have you seen the new BMW 1 Series? If so, what are your opinions on it? I really like the look of that, actually, to be honest with you. I can't go on the launch of it. I was supposed to, but I can't make that one. They're one after the other. I think there's one launch on top of the other, so I can't do both of them at the same time. But it does look very nice. For the first time ever, I think I can actually say that I like the look of a BMW 1 Series. I love the little 1 Series saloon. It was a gorgeous little car, but the hatch never quite worked out. As long as I don't ruin it by making it 4-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, we should be okay. BMW are making some very odd decisions lately because they're running out of money, and they know they are. So there's some very strange decisions going on about whether something's 4-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, that sort of stuff. Brendan Hessian says, Bob, one of your contributors said that a lot of saloon estate cars are gone, C5 amongst them. To correct him, as back as a C5 Aircross and the saloon will be back in 2021. Saloon's coming back in 2021? That's probably not the greatest idea, I have to say. C5 Aircross is still there, yes, but that is an entirely different car from the C5. I always remember the C5 as being just an insanely comfortable thing on a long drive. You could stretch out like properly and just hoover down long big roads on a big Vulgalore. Is it called Vulgalore seats? Those old lovely seats you just got in. It was just beautiful, beautiful thing. Someone else has given us a donation by PayPal. You're very good. I'll come to it. Doesn't show me on the thing. Bloody YouTube. Richard Coughlin, thank you very much. Bloody hell, Richard Coughlin, you're a big supporter. Thank you very, very much. You're very kind. That is an incredible support you've given. You can do the same thing, of course, through PayPal or Patreon, or just use one of the links down below to buy things off YouTube. Is really good of you. But thank you very much for your support today. It's been absolutely phenomenal day. Richard Coughlin, thank you. Jason Marison says, hi Bob, great channel, thanks very much. I'm moving from the UK to Ireland. Congratulations, you're welcome. Come to us, we are the solution to all of your problems next year, and I'm thinking of going EV, possibly the ID3. But what's the state of Ireland's EV charging network currently? Disastrous is what it is, Jason. No, it's not. There's a bit of investment happening in the EV network. We do have Ionity in the country, which is a private network that's come in for fast charging. Currently they charge €8 for a charge, no matter how big that charge is. So if you've got 10% of your battery or 100% of your battery, it's still €8, right? The rest of the network is made up of ESB, so the Electricity Supply Board is the national grid network. Works for me. I seem to be able to get around okay on it, but sometimes you will come across a situation where it just won't charge. It just won't work. Some of the charging units are in the right place, but some of those chargers aren't working, or they have been turned off and not repaired, or for whatever reason they're just not there. So it can be a little bit frustration. By next year, there's 20 million been earmarked for ESB to upgrade the network and do stuff. So by the middle of next year, by the time you're here in Ireland with your ID3, you should be able to get any amount of range out of that. And I'm sure Volkswagen will be putting down a gigantic amount of pressure on ESB to make sure the charging network is up to standard, because the ID3 is launched here next year, along with multiple other electric cars that are coming and promised from various car companies. So it's definitely going to happen. Neil Brandon, I am up as far as 2:47 p.m. I'm still over half an hour behind you. I'm sorry. I'm trying though. I'm trying to catch up with you. But we'll stay until all the questions are answered anyway. Neil Brandon says, Bob Flavin, Bob Flavin. Oh my God, he's tagged me as well. Anyway, am I the only one with fumes in the cabin on a VW diesel Touran? Specialists say it's a tandem pump mixing oil mix with diesel and cracking a manifold seal cabin and exhaust fumes. Okay, so there's 2 or 3 things to look at here, Neil, first of all, right? Number 1, are you smelling diesel as if it's poured out on the ground? And I don't mean diesel fumes, I mean the smell of actual diesel. You know when you get diesel and you're pumping diesel, you go in your hands, that smell. That means fuel is leaking from somewhere, which is very different from diesel fumes, right? So a crack in a manifold will not leak actual fuel. A crack in a manifold will leak exhaust fumes, which means you're smelling CO2 and a little bit of NOx and a little bit of everything else as well. That's dangerous. That will put you to sleep, right? So you fall asleep at the wheel if you smell that for long enough, right? But if you're smelling diesel fuel, as in the smell of the actual liquid coming out of it, then you've got a crack somewhere in the fuel system. So there's a fuel leak that's happening within the engine. Now, when you say a specialist, do you mean a Volkswagen specialist or you mean a specialist in engines? The tandem pump mixing oil mix with diesel, that can happen too. So there's a pump inside the engine which is pumping the oil around, but it's also, well, not that pump is not doing it, but part of the pump is pumping diesel around the engine. The two of them should never see one another. They should never mix. So if it's mixing, that's banjaxed. I'd get rid of that car as fast as I could. I don't know. That sounds kind of flippant, but I'm serious. Get rid of that car if it's that kind of problem. But realistically, if it's exhaust fumes you're getting in, then exhaust only happens from the manifold onwards. So exhaust is the 4th stroke of a 4-stroke engine. So you get compression, ignition, combustion, and then exhaust. Exhaust is where the engine has finished with the fumes. The fumes are going out through the top of the engine and into the manifold and down the exhaust system out the back of the car. You can, I don't know if they still do it, you could get a coloured smoke. You could make the engine plume out coloured smoke out through various parts of the manifold system, and it would show the leak. Not sure if you still do. A lot of specialist guys still do that one, I think. I used to do it years ago, for sure. You could get the stuff in Halford, so you could just pump it into the engine and pour it out through the manifold. You pump it up the exhaust pipe. The exhaust pipe is sealed all the way along, so you pump it the wrong way up an exhaust pipe, and you'd see it come out through the top, and you find the seal that's gone. Worth looking at the exhaust system underneath the car, halfway down, middle box, just behind where the manifold meets. The gasket could be gone there if it's that kind of fumes. If you're smelling in the cabin when it's driving along, it's in front of the cabin. If it was behind the cabin, you wouldn't smell it. So it's really logical stuff. You work it out after a while. TF says DSG is not reliable. I think older DSGs weren't. I think DSG these days is a different story entirely. Johnny the Fox. When is the new Audi A3 due to be released? God, it only seems like yesterday I was talking to David Caffrey, Audi designer, Irish guy from Dublin, one of the most senior Audi designers there is, about the A3 which he designed. So if there's a new one due, I don't know. When was that? It's got to be 4 or 5 years ago. So it'll be due shortly. You have to have a new A3 along next year. But it won't be revolutionary. Audi always just does a little change and moves it on. They do it very well, but it's always a little change. Bob, is there a high-speed train in Ireland? No, we are the opposite of high-speed trains. That's the best I can say about trains in Ireland. It is desperately slow in Ireland. Trains in Ireland are really expensive, I think. Public transport in Ireland is vastly overpriced. It's crazy money here to go anywhere in public transport, comparatively speaking, to private transport. So I can drive from Dublin to Portlaoise and back again on 20 quid in diesel. But to do that on a train from there and back again would stick me in Dublin city centre, Houston station, and it's going to cost me more than 20 quid. So we've no high-speed train up. We don't need one. The country's so bleeding small. Why would you need a high-speed train here? So you get from Galway to Dublin on a train in 2 hours. What time am I up to now? 2:55. So I'm catching up on you lot. Getting there. 50 sec is €4.67. Thanks, Michael. That's very good of you. And Michael Healy put in money as well there. So he's just telling me how much the sec is. What's sec? Where's that from anyway? Callet Nuts says, I just replaced rear disc brakes from a Skoda Superb, Mark III, at 60,000 kilometres, they were full of rust and uneven wear. The car is only 2.5 years old. Would you say this is normal? 2.5 years? No, I wouldn't. The rear disc brakes. Now, you can get some oddball things. So, about 30% of all the braking efforts comes from the rear brakes on a car. So, the rest of it all comes from the front. So, generally speaking, you find that you get a bit of warping on the front on very high mileage or very hard braking surfaces. Now, you can get a bit of warping on back brakes if you've used a handbrake. So 100% of the effort of brakes comes from the handbrake on the rear, right? So when you put on the handbrake, you're closing the rear pads on the car, closing them so the car can't roll off. Now, if you have pulled the handbrake and left the car there for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks and the pad is bedding in very hard on that one spot, that can cause you some problems on the back. But I would say 60,000 kilometres for rear brake discs, no, they shouldn't have been replaced that quick, really. At 2.5 years, it just seems very low. There is probably something else afoot there, but it might be just generally wear and tear from you using a handbrake all day, every day. The car sits outside for hours and hours and hours, resting on the handbrake, and it's caused some uneven wear. You know, that can happen. Some people park on a hill every night, and they leave the handbrake pulled on. It's the only thing holding the car there, and they might leave it there for 2 weeks. And it's sitting there resting, the pressure's all sitting on that disc, and eventually just kind of warps the disc out a little bit. It can happen and give uneven wear and uneven condition for the engine, but it's pretty rare. You'd have to see over the next 2 years. You replace them discs every 2.5 years, there's something going really wrong in the back of that car. Powell says maybe Skoda installs cheaper OEM brakes than VW. I don't think so. I would say instead of cheaper, I'd say Volkswagen Group install the same brakes basically across their entire range. That's much cheaper all round than stocking a lower grade version of brake discs and pads for different brands. You know, you'd have to stock 4 different kinds then instead of 2 or 1. Hellhound, love that name. Greeting, Bob. See, I know you all at this stage. I know your usernames, right? So when I see your usernames, I know if you've asked questions before because the name just pops up. I'm just going to skip forward for a second because I see Frank Metcalf is after answering the question. I have to wish a happy birthday to Frank Metcalf, who Facebook reminded me this morning that it's his birthday. So happy birthday, Frank. Well done. Thank you for being a supporter on the next gear, on this channel, on every other little event we go along to. So happy birthday, chap. And back to Hellhound. Greetings, Bob. Sorry I'm late, but I had to go to IKEA with the wife. Oh my God, what a place to go. Total waste of time. Not a single parking space. Drove around for a bit, came home. When there's any even remote bad weather, IKEA's jammers. And on a Sunday, it's like a madhouse. It's funny how we have gone from getting a piece of furniture that we kept for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, and then donated that on to a relative, you know, gave it to somebody who bought a brand new house, and we replaced it with something else, to now flooding IKEA every single Sunday and buying something new. And I do it myself. It's just as bad. You know, this thing behind me here is from IKEA. So, you know, I've been in IKEA many times. And now IKEA has come to a point. There's a couple of things we've seen on display recently that we couldn't actually buy in the shop. They're not stocked there. We could only order it online. They charge you €73 for delivery. So, right pain. We didn't buy it. But yeah, IKEA is a pain in the hole. So it's good to have you here. You know, if you're stuck in IKEA, you should come here and enjoy yourself. Michael Healy says, I had a baptism of fire with the Leaf, driving it from Belfast to West Clare, and was strangely fun. A few hairy stretches, but possible with planning. It's true, yeah, and I'm the same as well. There is something kind of remotely fun about getting as far as you possibly can. It's like petrol station gamble that I do every once in a while, cruising on the road, kind of going, I'm not putting any petrol, I'm going to see how far it goes, you know, see if I can get fuel economy. But electric cars are a little bit less forgiving, but generally electric cars will never show you the full empty. It won't allow itself to get completely empty because it needs to protect itself from being drained completely, because it won't charge up properly. So usually won't. You don't really control petrol and diesel. You're just at the mercy of oil companies rather than the ESB. If you want real control, generate your own electricity or drill or refine your own oil. I'm with you on that 100%. I'd love to put up solar panels on a roof that would charge a battery system outside that would charge my electric car, so effectively the sun that's shining right now would charge my car. That sounds ideal, but the expense level to go from where I am right now to that motive is going to be 15 grand. and a car. So 15 grand plus 40 grand for whatever car it is, a Kia or a Leaf or a Hyundai or whatever, 40 grand. So I need to invest about 60,000 euros in my house to future-proof it for the next 2 or 3 years and to be able to generate my own electricity until new technology comes along that I don't need to, and then it's 15 grand. It's very hard to keep up with the changing mood right now. Whereas if you buy a diesel car in 10 years' time, it's still going to be a diesel car, it'll still be going, probably. Mini eggs. I know people like SUVs, but they're about 10 mpg worse on average than Hatch Saloon Estate. How is that saving the planet? Not at all. Buying a new car is not the way to save the planet. Buying any new car is not the way to save the planet. The way to save motoring and to save the planet at the same time, if you need to have a drive, is to buy the oldest car you can find and keep it on the road forever, because you don't make any new plastics, you don't make any new equipment, there is no recycling to be done. It just stays, keeps on going and keeps on going, and all you got to do is recycle the oil every once in a while, of which a company here in the town called Enva recycles the oil. Paul Collins. So the Go Safe staff went on strike yesterday. Who cared? Absolutely no one. And what happened? Nothing. Did you know that? Nothing. The world didn't end. There wasn't a massive amount of speeding fines given out. There wasn't a whole heap of guards chasing us up and down the road with blue lights going. Nothing happened. The RSA, of course, would be up in arms because of this, because they run the Go Safe thing. They give you your penalty points. The Road Safety Authority, that lovely little authority that seems like a lovely little quango of a place, give out your penalty points. But nothing happened effectively yesterday when they went on strike. I don't know if they're still on strike today or not, but nothing. What was the point of having a Go Safe van other than making money? Bob, what about pure drivers' cars? Maybe the drivers are now buying just BMW 3 Series. Very few pure drivers' cars left, and next year is going to be even less. Now, as we invest some money in making electric cars more handly, because they're fun, because the weight is very low down in an electric car, the batteries are under the floor, and so that ability to be able to chuck into a corner and feel the weight distribution being very low on the cars is actually kind of cool. It's just very different from driving like sort of a rear wheel drive 3 Series. I think people will keep going that way, and I think people will continue to buy something performance-y, but with an eye on how fuel efficient it is and how ecologically sound it is. We do need to make ecological choices. I said last week, and I'm going to say it again, the first thing you can do as a human being to make your life better and to be ecologically fantastic about the whole world is to stop buying plastic things. I'm sorry, but just stop buying them. That's what it comes down to. When you go to Aldi, go to Lidl, go to Dunn's, Tesco's, you go to Super Value, wherever it is you're going, if they're packaging plastic things, don't buy it. Just do it once. Lidl, I have to give a big shout out to Lidl, because they now, at the end of the tills, when you go through, they've provided recycling items, so you can unpack the thing that they've sold you in plastic and just do it. It's a temporary solution they're doing right now. They've told me themselves that it is a temporary thing, that eventually they're going to get their suppliers to supply them with less and less plastics as we go. But at the moment, clean up your area, clean up your town, try to get rid of plastic, try to find a way to reuse the plastics. Go buy second-hand stuff from second-hand shops. Go to markets and buy second-hand things. Don't support places like pound shops, like these little small outlets that sell tons of Chinese plastic things. Don't support that. That's not the way. That's things you can do today without spending 50 grand on a brand new car. Ban Powell says, what's your opinion on a high mileage electric cars approximately 120,000 kilometers worth buying? No, don't. I don't think for 1 second that those electric cars, I think they will keep going. I don't think they're going to break down, but I really don't think you're going to get the same range from that car as you would have from new. I really think it's going to get less and less, and once that rot sets into the battery, eventually it's just not going to go for you very far anyway. So you're going to have to change the battery. So what you would have saved on buying this electric car, you're going to spend on buying a new battery for an electric car, because that's the only way to get the thing to go further, is to buy another battery. And they tell you that, by the way, when you're buying the car, they tell you about recycling. Oh, we'll recycle batteries. We're going to make a car that lasts 1,000,000 miles. Yeah, how does the battery last 1,000,000 miles? Mark Turner Smith, Annie McAfee, remember that incident in the UK? Hundreds of drivers caught, points removed and fines returned. Has happened a few times. Driver took a picture of a badly parked speeding van. There you go. Now get out with your camera, take a picture of that speeding van and get everybody off their penalty points. I'd wipe if I was the Minister for Transport in the morning, I'd wipe everybody's penalty points away out, just for the crack, like, just to cause a little bit of chaos. Because I love a bit of chaos. Every once in a while, chaos reminds you that you're still human, you know, that you can still do stupid stuff and get away with it. So what you're saying is, don't buy a used car in France. Michael Healy, you're dead right. Have you ever been around little small villages in France and you drive by a little car park and absolutely every car has absolutely every panel on that car there's a dent? That's how French people don't buy new cars. They just buy old cars and keep them going forever. Glenn Hall, hi Bob, will MG EV crossover be available in Ireland? Not that I know of. There's no sign of MG coming to Ireland, although there's no sign of Porsche coming to Ireland, yet we have a Porsche dealership in Dublin. You know, so it can happen. It's not that Porsche has opened a dealership, it's that another company has invested the money and done a deal with Porsche to supply cars here. So it could happen for MG. If somebody wants to take it on here as a dealership, I really do doubt it. There's so much money invested in sales, in after sales, particularly repairing things. There's courses to take, there's branding, there's the size of the dealership, there's the property, the land, and then who in Ireland knows what an MG is? I mean, outside of us motorheads who look at everything, who else in Ireland is going to know what an MG is? It's going to be such an uphill battle to get those cars on the road here. And in people's garages, that I don't know if they'll ever make them available here. You can, of course, go up to Northern Ireland or go over to Manchester and buy one over there and bring it in. Powell says, I saw the UK penalty point system. It's so easy to lose your driving licence, caught speeding, and the 70 mile per hour limit on motorways. It's the average speed cameras, lads. Never, ever, ever let an average speed camera come in there. And there's one in the Dublin Port Tunnel right now. I'm telling you, if average speed cameras make it onto the M50, your life will not be worth living. If you have ever driven around the is it the M1, the circular road around London? It's got average speed cameras all over it. It's a nightmare. It's a disaster. The bloody road comes to a standstill all the time. They are a spawn of Satan, is what the average speed cameras are. I'm telling you, get away from them. There's one or two of them on the way down to Spain from France as well. And you see the Ferraris go, wow! And then you drive along the road and you find him parked under a bridge having a cigarette while he's waiting for his average time to increase so he can go through it as well. It's crazy. Don't let average speed cameras come to Ireland. The UK is full of them, and it's making a mockery of driving in the UK. Ban Powell says, all of the electric cars you reviewed, European models, which ones impressed you most? The Kia Soul, definitely. Is my favourite of the ones that I've reviewed so far. Now, the Tesla Model X is my actual favourite, but the difference in price between the two of them put me straight off it. So there is, at their entry level, there's more than 50 grand between the entry Tesla Model X and the entry Kia Soul. So the Kia Soul is the one that I like the most. Kia e-Niro is very good as well. Nissan Leaf is actually pretty good. It's okay. It drives a bit funny. It's a little bit lighter on the front. I find it understeers very easy, but all the Leafs always did that. So between the whole lot. Paul O'Connor says, are you gone? The stream is gone. I'm not gone. I'm still right here, Paul. I'm okay. I'm still running on my screen here, and everything seems normal for my stream. So far, so good. You have me worried now. I'm thinking around whether it's all stopped or not. 3:49 p.m. I'm answering from 3:28. And that's just frozen on your screen, Paul. Which is a bit like the RTE player at the moment when you're trying to watch the bloody match and it just freezes in the middle of it. I got up yesterday morning to watch the match. The kids had something on television they were watching, so I flicked into the RTE player on my phone and I was reading blip, 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 blip. Worked for a couple of minutes, then it would die. It's just volumes. It's just not enough investment. They went with the wrong people, I think, at some point. They cheapened the whole lot. They had a great system for a bit and then they made a balls of it. Darren Kavanagh, Bob, is remapping good or bad for a car? I was thinking of getting my GTI Club Sport remapped. What do you think? It's neither. Do either. It's not bad for your car, but it can invalidate warranties. So all cars, just numbers from my arse now at the moment, right? So if I take a 100 horsepower car, that car has probably been tested up to 150 horsepower to see how it behaves. That's how they do it. They turn it up a little bit, turn it down, and then they try and find a balance point where that car gives the best fuel economy, CO2 emissions, and performance. And so you get 110 horsepower or 120. Particularly if in the case of Volkswagen, where they've brought out the 1.5 TSI engine and those kind of engines, in like 120 horsepower, 150 and 180 horsepower, same engine. So you can easily overclock your 1.5 TSI to 180 horsepower and get away with it. But it does invalidate your warranty. So if the car is under warranty and you chip it or do anything to it to overclock it in some way or another, that's a very computer term, but to remap it at some point, you will invalidate that warranty. If you go beyond the tolerances, the limits of it, you will definitely damage the engine, because it will allow you to put out much more revs than it's supposed to be done. So be really careful with it. Only do it with someone you have a definite recommendation that you know has done this before, and someone that your friend says, yeah, I got my car remapped and he was very good. That's the person you want to deal with. Don't worry about ads in the newspapers or online things or anything else. Get away from all that. Get an actual recommendation from someone who knows what they're talking about. And I don't, because I've never had a car remapped. I've remapped cars, but I've never had a car remapped. It's actually very easy to do once you have a computer. To be honest, I would commit suicide if I had to drive 70 miles per hour on the motorway. Why the British people do not organise strikes against the outdated limit? It's not outdated really, Powell. There's no need to commit suicide over that. In fairness, that's a waste of time doing that. 70 miles per hour is not fast nor slow. Our speed limit here in Ireland is 120 kilometres an hour, which is 73 miles per hour, 74 miles per hour, something like that. And it's fast. Now, it's not as fast like when I've driven in Germany or driven in other countries where there's unlimited speeds or where the speed limit is higher. It seems slower, but realistically 120 in this country is plenty. England is a bit different. England is very long, so if you want to drive from London to Edinburgh, it's a very long way. But if you want to drive from Manchester to Birmingham, it's like over there. It's quite a narrow country, so it's a funny place to have. They invented speed limits in fairness to them before Ireland did. We only had speed limits since 19 something or other. We brought in speed limits, I think, well into the 1900s. But our speed limits are variable depending on whether who's watching. Surprise, Ryan says, surprised someone hasn't threatened Boris with a comb. Yeah, I'm not surprised either, but he's got a little blonde hair that flips about place. How did you let that man into power? Anyway, sorry, right, off topic there. But yeah, Boris is a weird little fella who says an awful lot but actually says nothing. The perfect politician, the posh man who's never had a real job, and the only job he ever had was a bloody journalist. He was a journalist and was feeling people up, according to a report in papers all this morning, squeezing journalists' legs, women's legs and things. So, you know, all these little threats come out online the whole time. But I don't know how he let the man into power. I really haven't a clue. He just seems like a bumbling idiot to me. Maybe English people like that. Maybe the voting public like a sort of a bumbling buffoon type chap to be in charge of them. But I don't think so. I mean, think of Winston Churchill and all these other people you've had who aren't bumbling buffoons. Might be racist and all, but not bumbling buffoons. Trevor says the new 1 Series is front-wheel drive with X-Drive. That's the end of it then, BMW. I'm afraid my love affair is over with the idea of any of that. Mercedes are continuing their idea of rear-wheel drive on most of their cars. They do have front-wheel drive, of course, and their electric stuff, and four-wheel drive as well. But BMW were the holdout. They had the ultimate car. My ultimate, right now, today, normal car to get is a rear-wheel drive 3 Series. Virtually no options on it. Just get the fairly standard 3 Series saloon thing or estate in rear wheel drive and leave it at that. You'll be happy forever driving that car in diesel as well. Ban Powell says, surely it's far better to have a universal electric car charger connector instead of different connectors for different car models, just petrol and diesel. That is happening. Really, all of the chargers will go CCS over the next while. Even Tesla supply a CCS converter for their car to be able to charge a CCS. Everybody's going to be CCS eventually, I think. There'll be a version that will be able to carry more electricity in sometime in the future, but basically CCS will be the standard charger from now on. Andrew Boyd says, it's dangerous to fill up the tyre with more than maximum pressure written on the tyre. Not really, as long as you don't go crazy. I mean, if it's 35 pounds per square inch, you put 50 pounds per square inch in it, that could be a little bit hazardous if you so there's more inclined to burst at that rate if you hit something sharp. So instead of repelling, the problem is you need a tyre to deflate a little bit when it hits a bump. That makes it comfy. So a car that's slightly low pressure is more comfortable. but is more dangerous because the tyres get hotter faster. You should try and keep it within the tolerances. If it's 33 psi or 35 psi, going to 40 is not going to do a whole lot of harm. Going to 34 isn't going to do a whole lot of harm either. But as long as the same pressure is in all of the same pressure on the axle. So the two front tyres should be the same pressure as each other. The two rear tyres should be the same pressure as each other and within the tolerances on the entire car. Generally speaking, you will find a label usually inside the driver's door. Sometimes it's inside the fuel filler cap that will tell you the kind of tolerances to put into your pressure on your tyres. So you'll root around inside your car, you'll find it there. You'll find one that'll show what you're supposed to put in when there's 5 occupants, when there's 2 occupants, when there's luggage in the boot, so on. Just put in the kind of average between the two. It's usually about 32 to 35 in the front and 35 to 40 in the rear for best comfort. Better fuel economy comes from heavier, higher pressure tyres because there's less tyre touching the road. That also means you get less grip. Mark Turner Smith, would you, Bob, be thinking of live Sunday service in 2020? No passport and Brexit means no this year. Be a great road trip to do a live Sunday service in my 2001 Polo 6N2 GTI 2020 from the UK. That'd be a bit of a laugh, yeah. The problem is I often thought of doing a Sunday service live from a car, so having someone drive me around the place while I do the Sunday service in a car. The problem is as you drive around, your phone goes from mast to mast to mast and you can end up losing the signal halfway through this, so it becomes a problem. So it's totally possible to do it. But once you switch masts, the problem is you end up on a worse mast or something and the whole signal drops. So it's best to do a Sunday service when you're standing still. Although I did do a Sunday service from the Ionity launch, which was fine, but we were standing still there as well. Nuno M. We are at 3:57 and I am answering questions from 3:42, so you're calming down. I'm catching up on this, so I'm going to be stuck here for another while yet. If you could support the channel, it'd be absolutely brilliant. Hit the subscribe button, go check out the Patreon link, go to paypal.com/Bob Flavin, I think it is. It's there's a link down below in the comments there. You can also follow me on Instagram. I'm starting to use YouTube stories as well, so if you're into the story thing, you're on the app, people are watching. I don't know how many, 700 people or something watched the story I did the other night, so it's proof that they're there. So I'm doing it there as well, so you get it from anywhere. But anyway, Nuno M. Looking at the UK market to upgrade from an Insignia, God love you, I commute from Carlow to Dublin to work and looking maybe to get a VW CC for 2014-15 or CLS 250. CLS will give you a beautiful looking car. It's an amazing looking thing. But you will find them in Ireland. You won't necessarily get them in the UK. CLS is gorgeous. I would suggest that the CC will go further with less trouble-free mileage. I think the CC has a lot of tech in it, a hell of a lot of tech in it, but the CLS is murderously high on tech. There's a lot there, a lot going on in suspension systems, a lot of tech on the interior as well. Both of them will do what you wanted to do, but you're going to get a 2014-2015 CC for the money of that CLS in 2013. So it's a couple of years in the difference. I would probably buy the CC. It's comfy, it's going to be good over the long drive, and it's nice and roomy inside as well. The goal was to wait a little while longer to get a 640D Grand Coupe, but we won't have enough time till Brexit. Any other car you could recommend? Not really, you're on the right line if you're going for 640D. Those 640Ds, I warned you when I was driving. If you look at the video on my channel still, I'm telling you that car is going to be a collector's item. So many people have talked to me about CCs and 640Ds since I put them up. Check them out for sure, but at the same time, the only car you're looking at is the CC one out of that. That's the one I recommend most. Fresha Crema has gone out and bought some coffee. Very good. And has given us a little tip in a tip jar as well. €20 versus on our super chat. You're so kind. Thank you very much. It is brilliant to have your support on this. Now this turned into quite a nice little Sunday. With so many of you watching today. It's just an amazing day. By the way, if you're watching here on Patreon, I've already put out Tuesday's video, which is the Skoda Scala video. But if you want to become a Patreon or patron, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, go over to Patreon, find Bob Flavin there, subscribe for as little as £2 a month, or a £5 a month, or £20 a month, or £100 a month, whatever you want to do, and you will get the videos that come out on my channel a few days early, along with some behind the scenes stuff that I'm putting together for you. It's a bit complicated to do it on my own, but I'm putting together a few kind of behind the scene vlog things and stuff that will go out only on Patreon, and until I figure out another way of putting it out on Patreon, on PayPal, I don't know what I'm going to do there, but I'll figure that one out as well. Nicholas Tetrosis, Greek, are you? I'm just guessing, but it looks like a Greek name. Hi, Bob. Keep up the effort. We're solid. Looking for buy a hot hatch in Greece. See how I was good there? I know all these international languages. Taxes are very high. I-30N, 28,750 euros. That's probably cheaper than Ireland. A Focus ST, 37,593. Megane RS, 43,000. Don't buy a Megane RS. GTI PP, 36,750. Cooper, 34,325. Which way should I go? I would take the Hyundai i30N, being honest with you. That is a phenomenal machine. A proper, race-bred yoke. Goes like the stink. Now, my second favourite there out of those ones would be the Cupra. But I think the Hyundai would have it for me. I think I'd go to Hyundai i30N. Plus, it's the cheapest out of the list that you just provided me. So I'm saving you money as well. Isn't that good? Raymond Grace. Bob, warning people about speed traps, not a good idea, as those... Whoop, hold on a second. I just skipped on me there. I'm coming on, catching me. Bob, warning people about speed traps, not a good idea, as these drivers learn nothing by avoiding punishment. I do not agree with you. I know you're a supporter, a subscriber, and I know your name has popped up millions of times, but I really don't agree with you. It's us and them. I think you learn nothing from getting 3 penalty points. Yes, of course that's going to slow you down, and yes, of course that's the way of the world, that you think you're going to be punished, that you will somehow learn from your punishment, but the reality is prison has never worked. It hasn't taught a single person how to be a better person out there. If it did, prisons would be empty. They would not be full. So the same applies for penalty points. I got 3 penalty points coming out of the airport one night. I did, what was I doing, 65 or 73 or something stupid like that in a 70. It was something tiny. It's 8 or 9 kilometers an hour over the speed limit. I remember distinctly seeing the bloody van, and I got 3 penalty points out of that. The 3 penalty point system had just arrived into Ireland. You keep 3 penalty points for 3 years on your licence for that stupid indiscretion. And I don't speed. I don't really speed at all for any purpose. Just that night I was overtaking a taxi who had seen the Go Safe van, hit the brakes, and I pulled out from behind him on 2 lanes, but we were totally safe. Pulled out behind him to overtake, and just moving around, I looked up and oh no, too late, already caught. So I don't agree. I think we should all drive around the road protecting one another from penalty points. The purpose of a penalty point, or purpose of this Go Safe van, is to slow people down. If you warn people that they're there, it slows people down. So the effect is the exact same as having a Go Safe van in the first place. It slows everyone down to under the speed limit. Everybody slows down. So it's all win-win. It's just you slow down and you don't get penalty points. There you go. Fresher Kramer says, hi Bob, electric car or hydrogen, what do you think would be the best in your money to put in or not in? Electric car would be the only way for the foreseeable future. 100% hydrogen is on the way, but it is on the way in a commercial sense. So you'll see hydrogen buses come out because they all go back to a depot, and that depot can have a single hydrogen charge point put in it for all those buses. Rather than having to build 20 or 30 hydrogen stations across Ireland, you're only building 2 or 3. One in Cork, one in Dublin, one in Galway, one in Waterford, one in wherever, other city, Dublin as well. So between all them, you can just build those for the buses and even trucks. So even a big trucking company can build a single hydrogen fuel station and charge up multiple trucks at the same time. If you want hydrogen in cars, you're going to have to convert all these petrol stations to run with hydrogen as well. So it does make it a little bit more difficult for them to do. And it's harder to do. So at the moment, electric is going to be it until hydrogen really gains a bit of ground. We have a hydrogen group working behind the scenes in Ireland, but I think it's the same principle. I think they're looking for that idea that we're going to roll out as a commercial system rather than being an individual car owner system. So electric is the only way until hydrogen becomes easy to buy. Sven Mullert says, with motorcycle you can always escape speed cameras and average speed cameras because all those cameras work with induction loops on the road. Just don't drive over them, only between cars with no escape. I know, but we can't all ride motorbikes either, but they'll eventually get you. Just don't let average speed cameras come in the first place. I remember talking to a man from Texas not so long ago in the US. He said they tried to put in average speed cameras on a section of motorway near his house, and he shot them out. He just shot them with a shotgun one night, all of them, and continued to shoot them every time to replace them until they were all broken. And that's how they did it. In Paris, they tried to bring in clamping. So they clamp all the cars that weren't paying for parking, and instead of doing anything about the clamps. What it did was they put super glue in the lock of the clamp. So when they rang to pay the fine, they paid the fine, but your man couldn't get the clamp off the car because the super glue, so he had to cut the lock off the car. And all of the Parisians kept this up until they stopped clamping cars because it became uneconomical for them to continue replacing all the locks. Just saying, not advising to do that here in Ireland, but I'm just saying that that's the way it is. That's the way it was in Paris. It's the M25 you're thinking of, Bob. It's true. Driver's hell. Average speed cameras in the UK. Doom. Our freedom lost. Please rewind to early 90s when I first started driving. Freedom. I know it's that freedom is the thing. It's being eradicated slowly but surely, and it's under the veil of safety. It's under this. It's unsafe for you to be driving while holding a phone. Bang. It's illegal. It's unsafe to be driving while shaving, or something will be next. You know, how dare you drive barefoot, which is also illegal in Ireland, by the way. Can't drive barefoot, can't drive flip-flops in Ireland. And that comes from New Zealand, actually, because in New Zealand everybody's barefoot. Brian Cullen says, hi Bob, I need new tyres. Can I replace my R17 225 50 tyres with R17 225 55? My thoughts were that I might be get a softer, more comfortable ride. Yes, you can. As long as... So you need to look at, the problem is the travel distance on your car. So to look at those numbers, R17 is the size of the wheel in the tyre, not the size of the tyre. It's actually the size of the wheel inside, 17 inch. 225 is the width of the tyre, so that's across the top of it. And 55 is the height of the tyre. So that's from the wheel to the top edge of the tyre. Now, so 50 fits into your wheel arch. Now, I see 55 might not fit into the wheel arch properly. So if you mount a curb or your suspension has to go all the way up, it can hit the inside of your wheel arch. You can check on, is it Continental or is it Semperit or someone that does a chart thing, tells you what is the maximum tolerance tire you can fit into the thing, but you can for sure. It's 5, so you're going from 50 to 55, so slightly bigger, thicker tire. It will give you more comfort. Probably 60-70% of the road noise and comfort of your car comes from your tire, not from your suspension at all. Insignia, you say it should be able to. Insignia should be able to handle an extra big tire or a slightly bigger tire, no problem. Hellhound, we don't vote Boris into power, or May for that matter. Democracy, I'll go figure. I know, yeah, it's true. You've just landed with them, and you let that earlier, Cameron off scot free. He just goes off and does whatever he wants to as he walks through the door. I love that part. That's so funny when I see him going through the door. He's just out there, right, that's Brexit, right, I'm off. See, so you walking off, hello. Pet the cat on the way through the door. Hi, mouse, I got my pension. Finished. Nadir Hassan says, why do you think the electric prices will rise? It is purely because of more electric cars being pushed in the market and will be charged more at home on public charging. So ESB are going to bring in charges on the public chargers from next month or the month after. They're going to make a proper announcement. They seem wishy-washy about it. I'm not too sure if they got it really right yet. And I think that's going to be a flat fee. What they're prepping, Nadir, to put it simple, is they're thinking ahead. So the next 12 months, what's going to happen is we're going to see a rise in the amount of electric cars on the road. They're going to be charged at charge rates at the machines, which means ESB has to pick up the tab on that. So they're putting up the price now so they can put up the price again when it becomes a very popular thing. Right now it's 2.5%. We all go, 2.5% is not much. It's about 13 quid a year. Next year, mid-year, 2.5%. Well, that's, you know what? That's a 5% rise, over 12 months. And another 2.5% coming into winter because, it's getting a bit cold and we're going to need more electricity. So that's 7.5%. But they do it in a nice little slow, gentle way, just so they can kind of prep you up over time and you don't notice it coming. It's a bit like, lubing up before you start doing a bit of work. Joe Lyons says, RTE Player is a joke. They meant to go with the current provider due to the increase in VPN access to their content. The provider is very strict and with great bouncing VPN, but this... star is up the bandwidth. That's the problem, is that in high traffic times it seems to just fall asunder and it's pure traffic level. If you pick a normal kind of Tuesday, RT Player plays okay. The problem I have is that they ban you from looking at RT Player if you've got an ad blocker on. They ban you from looking with VPNs. They ban you from doing all sorts of codology attached to the thing. It's not what I signed up for. I pay my TV license. I have paid my TV license for well in excess of a decade now in this single address. So I have no problem saying once and for all that I have no interest whatsoever in continuing to pay my TV license for the service that I get from RT. I generally watch next to 0 on RTE because there's no content there for me. What are they going to show me? Top Gear. I can see that on BBC. It's there already. I've seen it months before it appears on RTE. Or, as I do, I can go to a free channel like Dave in the afternoon, have a doze on the couch while I'm watching Clarkson go sideways in 1997 or something. The Saint has joined us. Hi all, where's the best city town to move to in Ireland? None of them. No, I'm only joking. Dublin, Galway, I've had enough of Brexit. I want to bring my engineering skills over there. Portlaoise is a great town to move to. Dublin is very high prices for accommodation. Galway would be the same. Waterford is gaining popularity. It's a coastal town down the south, nice and bright on there. Anywhere in Wexford. Cork is its own country, literally, more or less. They behave as if the rest of Ireland doesn't exist, and I love that for them. I love Cork people. They're brilliant people on there. So there's anywhere in Ireland is pretty good. Cheaper away from the cities, cheaper outside of Dublin. Any city outside of Dublin is cheaper than Dublin, essentially. Mini eggs. Will you get to test a new A6 all-road? If there's an A6 all-road ever goes on the fleet, because it's never come on the fleet here. I tested one internationally once. That was the last time I saw an A6 all-road on the fleet for test in the first place. Mark Turner Smith misunderstood me, Bob. I meant drive over to be at a live Sunday service like you talked about this year. Meant to drive over my 2001 Polo GTI as a road trip, not drive on. Oh yeah, okay, come on over. If you go over to our Facebook page, Sunday Service Community, there's a link down below in the description, I think. Go over there, join that. We have a live meetup coming. There is one on the way that's going to be a live version. You can also meet me at the Ideal Home Show this year if you want to check that out. There is a free ticket on that Facebook page. Click in and get that offer because it's totally free. Totally get just free tickets. And I'm doing a talk of that, so you can meet me at that as well if you want to come along to that. It'll be free to get in on that day. I don't know what day that is, but it'll be free to get in that day. And you come and find out about electric cars live like this. Only I'll be standing up and probably have a mic or something, I suppose. I don't know. No one's told me what to do yet. I haven't written a word. Joe Lyons. For all speed traps, if they are in place for safety, but the majority are revenue driven, they are placed in bad places, not dangerous where they should be. I'd agree as well, Joe. That speed trap that's on the way into Killy, coming out or going towards Tullamore, it's just on a brow of a hill at the very top on a lovely straight. You come around this kind of a corner and he's tucked into the left side of the road there. It is 100% purely there to catch you. It is not there to prevent you from speeding. I am all in for things that prevent you speeding in the first place. I have no problem with that. But I'm really against things that are there to catch you speeding, because that defeats the purpose. If you put a sign a quarter of a mile away from that speed van saying speed van ahead, no one would speed. That's preventing speeding, right? So what is the point of putting one up to catch you? And the next comment is from the Saint. Speed traps must be known. It's all about prevention. Catching people speeding means the system has failed and they are already speeding. Correctamundo. You don't want to catch people while they're there. So it's been 2 hours and 15 minutes. You mad feckers are still here. A huge amount of you who tuned in today. You're so kind. Thank you very much for joining me every time. It's such good crack here on a Sunday. It really does pass the time so fast. This is the quickest 2.25 hours of the entire week. Just zooms by in your wonderful company. Thank you very much for joining me today. As I said, you can support this channel in multiple ways, and thank you to all the people who support the channel today. You're so good. And we will be back again next Sunday, as per normal, at 2 p.m. But you can support the channel from the list of links down below. You can go to PayPal. Patreon is my new little favourite thing. I'm trying to really improve how that works this year. But you can do it on Super Chat as well while it's live, or in any way you want, whatever way you like. It's always good. But thank you very much for joining us all again today, this lovely Sunday. And until the next time, I will see you on the far side.